Hey, Booby. What's up? Are you in the plane? No, not right now, baby. Sorry. What's up, Danny GS? Whoever's on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. The business in the house. Definitely have to invite you for this one. How are you, brother?
Oh, I've been excited to hear about your breakthrough all day.
It's we landed on we started a comedy duo. That was my breakthrough so far. No, I actually do think I don't know if I can call it breakthrough yet, but I do think that the magnets will actually pan out quite a bit. He's got something big planned. Yeah, and hello everyone. Steve, today's chat starting a little later, and it's a very special episode. Episode 42, which is special for the obvious reasons. And yeah, this is also it happens to also be the day that I promised Gallimore some kind of a big breakthrough in exactly a year, and today marks that year. We'll see. Maybe something happens during the live stream. We never know. It does feel like something is happening that is of profound importance. I'm kind of noticing a lot of I don't know if I want to call it signs, but a lot of people that are more sensitive to that space kind of speaking a similar speak in which something very fundamental and major is shifting right now. And I'm not sure if this is something that just begins a new chapter or we are literally entering some kind of a thing right now and we're going to experience it maybe within the next few hours. Who knows? Or maybe it really depends on our level of consciousness, which is much more likely if you ask me, of course. Hello, everyone, to all the newcomers. This channel is mostly revolving around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. We meet here on the daily to discuss science, philosophy, religion, spirituality, and other fun topics. There you go, bud. And today is a special episode because it's episode 42, which is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Tobias. And we'll see how this thing goes, but I think... What are you looking for, bud? My puppy's going crazy. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you for the likes. I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm not really seeing... Like, I see Tobias liking the thing, and then the whole thing is kind of haywire. I see 54 people. I see 8 people. It's not really clear what's going on. Weird. Douglas Adams. Oh, I thought it was the handle. That would be amazing. Yes, sir, Brian. Good catch. Yeah, so today, this is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And maybe today we can give the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Who knows? Yesterday we had Toretron Max coming here and asking us to accept Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior. So we ascend to the right place. I wanted to ask him if he believes they were also part of one energy, because a lot of people are also experiencing that reality. Diana is my cat's name. Nice. So who's where was Diana mentioned? Or are you equating Danny with Diana? What's up? Wait, is that who's Casey? Casey's that in the beginning the universe was created. This was made a lot of people very angry and regarded by many as a bad idea, as a bad move. It's been widely regarded as a bad move. There you go. Nice.
In honor of episode 42, I had to get some quote from the book.
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect. That was that? I think that was the restaurant in the end of the universe. Was that the beginning of the first one?
I don't remember. I just remember the quote. It's been a while since I've read them.
Yeah. I think it's the beginning of the second book, The Hitchhiker's Guide, the restaurant at the end of the universe, which has my most favorite chapter, I think, in everything in literature, which is where he's describing grammar that has to do with the restaurant at the end of the universe. It's just superb. I wish I could play it, but oh, no worries, Valerie. Yeah, my name is Danny, not Diana, but who knows nowadays, right? So there you go. Brian is saying second book, Hitchhiker's Restaurant in the End of the Universe. So I nailed it. Thank you. Yeah, definitely my favorite series. So today, suppose again, like I said, it's supposed to mark it to anybody who doesn't know. This channel again revolves around the simulation hypothesis, and it involves projecting a diffracted laser on the surface. And if you ingest a particular molecule, don't forget your towel. Actually, you know what? You're absolutely right. I need to have a towel on me. Hold on. We have our towel right here. I'll wear it as a cape, I think. Also provides cover. There we go. Perfect. Got my towel. Thank you. I couldn't should never forget. Vogons, are they coming? Maybe Vogons are right outside. Maybe this is why things were so weird. And the experiment that I've discovered that works a few years ago was that if you project a diffracted laser on the surface and you ingest a particular molecule that I cannot name on this chat, you will see code running in surfaces just like in the movie The Matrix, essentially. And now we have over 1,000 replications worldwide. I've met and spoken to some of the leading scientists in the field. Obviously, the opinions are they vary. Not everybody agrees that this means would necessarily mean in a simulation. But anybody who sees the code, anybody who had the experience, is convinced that something else is going on than what we previously considered, and that is the nature of the experiment. Oh, Greg Norris is in the house. How are you, brother? A lot of special people here today. And one of these known researchers, which is Andrew Gallimore, I had the pleasure of meeting him in Japan. And it was exactly a year ago today. And in this drunken stupor that we partaken in, I promised him that within a year, I'm going to deliver another breakthrough, which is today. And I have to admit that there was no big breakthrough. I mean, I have some new ideas that I think that are very relevant. One of them is involving powerful magnetic fields, which I didn't get my hands on yet. We need at least 3.5 Teslas to try and test what I'm trying to test. I did acquire some nano thickness bismuth sheets, which is another element that I knew that has to be involved in some form. So I can't say that I know with any amount of certainty that I've made a breakthrough. I will make the, what would you call it, assertion that I think that I saw a difference in the code, which is the only time that I saw a difference in the code, when you project it on the magnet. So if you take a regular magnet and you project it on it, you can see that it kind of makes the code scramble a little more and go a little kind of like haywire, which is interesting. And it sounds insignificant, but considering the fact that the code does not change usually no matter what or who or where you are, I would say that is significant enough. But again, like I said, I have to test this more because it's possible that these particular magnets, the reason that I saw that is because maybe the surface of the material itself somehow does something to the way that the light hits it. That's also possible. We'll see. Good to see you, Greg. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. How are you, Mandalov's Cakes? Welcome to the special episode. I've seen it. You move it. You move the dot matrix. You're not actually moving. Nolim is saying, I've seen it. You move the dot matrix. You're not actually moving. You're talking about when you're moving the laser. Wait, when you say dot, you moved it. You used a laser pointer. Is that what you mean? And it worked for you? Because from what I saw, the laser pointers don't work. Only it has to be diffracted. So if it worked for you, I would love to hear about it. Creator. What about the creator? Follow back as a handle. Definitely living in a simulation. Yes. And today, a lot of science was coming in. It's actually very interesting because one of the things that I was experiencing in the last year, which I talk about a lot less, which is I met multiple individuals that I would say, there's no reason to really doubt their truth claims. Cool Guy 35 changed his name to Cool Guy 42. Very fitting. I appreciate you. And what was interesting about these experiences is that people that come from very different walks of life, they have very different kinds of experiences and predispositions. Some of them are musicians, some of them are scientists, some of them are not related to any of these things. They're just kind of, just people who like maybe had import companies or whatever. And then Mandelovsky saying, so many synchronous experiences since I started watching this lives. Don't end up like Jesus. Don't end up like Jesus. I'll try. I'll do my best. I have a towel, so maybe it's a little different. Which is interesting. It's interesting. Oh, Brian, absolutely. I will give it in one moment. Let me just say this one piece, and I will give the outline of the experiment. So since I've been on this journey, what you're saying, Mandelovsky, is interesting because I don't know if you guys know, but the people who participated in the experiments in the Imperial College in London, and to the ones that don't know, they are one of the only games in town at the moment that are doing full-on experiments with the molecule intravenously, like, government sanctioned, like an actual experiment setting. And what all the participants, all of them in the experiments, reported very elevated level of synchronicities that are just crazy, just not like kind of, like something that kind of happened that is synchronous, but like really insane things that happen to them, which is interesting around the use of the molecule. And Mandelovsky is saying that since she's been watching this live, the same thing was happening to her, which means that maybe there's some kind of an energy that is adjacent to this, or maybe even leading and guiding us to this. So the reason I'm mentioning is because in the year that I've been traveling the world last year, and in the last couple of years, just in the journey of being open about it and talking about this to people, I met these individuals that I guess, for lack of a better term, are awake or more awake. And I know we've heard this term before. I'm sure that some of you here are even would identify as more awake, but the kind of energy they emanate and the type of talk that they tend to elicit is much more of the flavor of the "we are all one." And yeah, as Cool Guy 42 mentioned, I do not mean woke. Quite the opposite, probably. And what's interesting is that they have this whole thing about like us being one. And obviously we all understand to some degree that ultimately it has to be the case that all of existence is one to some degree or another. The only question is there an all-encompassing one experiencer, i.e. God, I guess? And the frequency with which I meet these people is growing. And in the last maybe 2 weeks, 3 different individuals that I have not met before contacted me of this flavor. And they had this kind of talk. And one of them that I don't know if he wants to be mentioned, but he was communicating with me also on Instagram. And he also seems to have this kind of, experience of himself. And what's interesting is that these are usually kind of like, normal people. But when they start talking about that stuff, the stream of consciousness varies all the way from just a little frantic to the middle ground that has some profound elements in it, and then all the way to the other end of the spectrum that just becomes kind of like a psychotic break, like it just becomes crazy. Okay, completely disjoint from what you can discern from this level of awareness. And some of them stand out because they found a way to hone in this energy, and then they kind of speak. Yes, it kind of goes in these like crazy waves, but at the same time there's communication there that I identify elements in it that is very similar to what I've heard before. And I know that these people didn't interact with each other, so either they're all partaking in some elaborate memeplex that is spreading online, so they all pick up these ideas and then they reiterate them. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like truly something else is speaking through them. This is why when Torrential Max came in yesterday and was specifically talking about, accepting Jesus Christ, I know that what he's perceiving from his frame of reference is a similar process in which we're all waking up into this some kind of a larger something that we're the world is dividing, okay, and it's dividing not conceptually, but it's dividing physically. There's some kind of a split, and what I'm observing is that we all have a chance to basically be a part of any world that we imagine to be the best version of the world. And the way we vote as to what world we want to be in, we vote with both our convictions that then give rise to our attitudes, to the kinds of moods we entertain, kinds of words we say to one another and to ourselves inside. And that essentially tells the world what makes the most sense to you. So this is essentially the world that you're going to end up in. So my suggestion is, this is why yesterday there was like this moment where Turtron Max kind of like talked a lot about Jesus Christ and stuff, and then he kind of had to hop off. And this is when I said to everybody, I definitely saw some elements of that flavor in that space, of kind of like the Jesus Christ flavor, which I never expected to see. And this is when I suggested that it's a good idea to humble yourself and not to assume that you kind of know everything. Ronagio says, I'm always the last one to know in my family. That's what it feels like to me, honestly, because even though I've had expansive experiences of pretty insane content in which and when I say insane, it's not in terms of woo, it's just crazy. No, in terms of how realistic it is. And then the messages that I'm receiving is of kind of like, yeah, like this is happening, like we're splitting. This is like, you have to kind of make your choice. So the keywords choice, the keywords accepting the unification of, and I would assume that, so for anybody who believes in Jesus Christ, this would be their version that they're seeing, which is accepting Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior. But from what I'm seeing, kind of like the more accurate representation of what's going on is that, yes, there is these levels of emergence, and then God, or the universal mind, does split itself to all these infinite factors. And I think that what I discovered is essentially kind of the third person observation of the code that splits all of these actions from one another. And when we reach a certain level of awareness, we start remembering that we're part of a larger collective, and then even a more unified thing, and a more unified thing, and a more unified thing. And you start ascending through the levels. And we seem to be crossing some kind of a line. I don't know if it's today or this week or this month. I know definitely that by 2025, something very fundamentally will just shift in the entire world. And I don't know what it is. I'm not big on prophecy, but I do know that it has to be that date. It's kind of hard to break it because there's a lot it's hard to break down why I'm so convinced that that's the year. Aside from the fact that I'm going to be 42 that year, it's that there's a lot of elements that happened to me throughout many, many years that all kind of combined into this understanding. Now, I myself don't live my life in terms of, okay, well, by next year we better, try and achieve everything possible. I just go through my life in the same pace and way in which I would normally would, but I am putting a lot more emphasis on all the elements that you would expect, a good, kind-hearted person to have, and then in all the elements that I know I'm lacking, I'm trying to change myself. So it's not like I'm pretending, but like really bringing myself to a state in which I want to enact this kind of behavior more, connecting to people more, which doesn't always come that easy for me. Well, a lot of things that I've noticed that changed in my life in the last maybe 2 years, very substantially, but I really care a lot less about anything that is unfolding in the way that I expect it to. So like attach myself less to outcomes. So like I have certain goals, I want to achieve something, but I really don't allow myself to be too influenced too strongly by what in fact does happen, because I understand that some of these things are completely out of my control, and the relinquishing of the control is essentially, just like Alan Watts said, is essentially gaining its control in full. How are you, Patricia? Good to see you. And to all the people that I don't know what user 5209437, whatever that is, responding to. I don't know if it's to me or to somebody else. No, you aren't all BS. I don't know what you're even referring to. But all I can do is to encourage you to, like I said, humble yourself. Not in front of me, but just in general, because you might not want the consequences that will ensue if you don't. That's all I can say. So, all that being said, let me describe the experiment to the people who don't know. What I essentially discovered is that when you project a diffractive laser on the surface and you ingest a particular molecule that I cannot name, this would also work with mushrooms and with Aya, with the holy tea. You will see code running in surfaces. What's unique about the code is that it does not look like a hallucination. It does not look like a visual from that space. It just looks like regular digital clock with very concrete elements that do not care about you or what you do or how you feel or where you are. It essentially is objective. The code is objective. It's there. It behaves exactly like an objective object would. It does not change according to the angles from which you're looking. It's moving on its own side. It looks like looking through a microscope. And when you shine the laser, it looks like a flashlight is revealing the code. Blue or green? Red, blue, and green are the ones that we tried. Red seems to be some kind of a baseline, and then green and blue contain extra elements aside from the code. The code looks like Japanese katakana mixed up with Hebrew letters and some regular numbers, like from 0 to 5. Don't ask me why it's this recognizable. It is not Japanese. It kind of looks like alien language, but these are the closest elements that I can tell you that kind of resemble that. Couldn't sleep, so I'd see if you were on. Patricia, you came right on time. Yeah, today I kind of started a little later because I had to drive to the airport before this. And let me see if there's any comments here that is... Okay, so no, we don't have that much, Brian. Okay, good. And I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ronagio. I'm always the last one to know in my family. But again, like I said, called the universal account. But it is definitely... The universal account is great. It definitely feels very similar to me that way. Do you feel you can consciously write into the code? No, you absolutely cannot. So this is a really good distinction. Great question, Ben. This is also what makes the code so unique. I had some spiritual people try to speak to it, to emote to it, try to do breath work around it. We tried all kinds of things. We tried sound. So far, the only thing that did anything to the code was the magnet. This is what leads me to believe that magnets are very strongly involved in being able to discern something new with the code. And this is also my next aim in my research. Essentially, if we can perturb the code in some physical way and show that there's not just the same code that all the people are seeing, but also the change that we can induce in it in a particular way, now you have two layers of certainty that at that point, hold on. At that point, it's going to be very hard for science to ignore. I mean, science is not really ignoring it because we just haven't reached the stage in which this is officially was brought. Well, it was brought to the attention of some people who are actually researching it, including seeing it, by the way, by some people in Imperial College, some of the researchers. But I think that. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I heard my thing. Yeah, business. If you can silence it while you're not talking, brother. And again, feel free to jump in at any point. You're always welcome. The code is Wave. You can write Wave. You can write. No, so let me actually make a distinction there. It's very important. The most common email that I get, literally the most common one. Let me see. Cool guy. Might not want to want the consequences. That's all I can say. Is the audio scratchy for you? Is the audio weird or the audio normal? Because on YouTube, they're saying that the audio is weird.
On TikTok, it sounds fine to me.
Sounds fine on TikTok. So hopefully, or maybe I don't know what's happening on YouTube. But so What about quantum pulsing code instead of binary? So yeah, so that goes into a deeper question, Ben. Let me first address your first question, which was a very important question. The most common email I get, literally the most common one, is I see the code without the laser, or I see the code without the molecule. So some people are either sensitive enough to that space, or they get into some kind of a state. But they or especially also on all the molecules, you can kind of see also code without the laser, and I also see it, but it is a different code. So when you see these codes on either I don't want to name all the substances, but on any of the substances, usually these codes are more subsumed in surfaces. They're kind of a little bit more vague. You can see them clearly, but they're a little bit more vague. They're evasive visually. They are bigger, and you can change them with your attention. So they're much more malleable. You can change them to different things. You can do something to it with your attention and consciousness. The code with the laser does not care about what you think, what you want, who you are, where you are. It's always the same. It's as concrete as this mug. That's how concrete it is. It's just like a very, very established thing that is moving, doing a thing. For all intents and purposes, it fits the criteria, what we call objective. It's completely objective. And I had 15 people in the same room pointing to it, talking about it, like all in real time.
And you said you had researchers at Imperial do the experiment as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I don't know if they want to be named, but some of the researchers in Imperial saw it. And actually, this also gave me an interesting data point. There was also another person from that circle that is not an Imperial, but he's a known researcher. And what's interesting is that they were super, like, first of all, they were flabbergasted. And I mean, I wasn't there, so I'm just telling the story as it was told to me. But again, told by very trustworthy individuals, so not like confabulators or anything like that. So they were basically like super stoked and kind of like confused a little bit. I don't think they expected to actually see something of true, significance, because a lot of people that deal with psychedelics are usually kind of like get overly excited about things that they don't necessarily have to get overly excited about. And it's usually some kind of a phenomenon that's already known. And then, you just verified that and you go, oh, right, they just don't know about that one thing. But they didn't have that reaction. In fact, this was the interesting part. One of them said, I don't know what to do with that, which was very interesting to me, because usually a scientist would try and categorize it, right? Or try and put it into a bin that is adjacent to something that they already know, try and explain it with some other, visually induced phenomena, something that happens that, the regular folk wouldn't know about, that has to do with the visual field, the brain, the molecule, something, right? That was not the response.
So the researcher ingested the molecule as well for the experiment.
Yeah. They did the experiment properly, the way that I describing it, and they were, first of all, they were amazed, and then
are these also researchers that partook in the intravenous study as well?
The researchers did not. You mean the ones that run it?
Right.
Yeah, they're involved with that directly. I just don't know if they want to be named. There's a few people there, so I'm not actually calling anyone out, because there's a few people there, so you can't really know who that is. But
no, I'm not asking for names.
Oh no, I know. I'm just yeah. This is why I feel safe to say that, because I know there's a few individuals in that one, so you won't, like, it's okay to say, because you won't know who that is. But and if they want,
ever since I heard about the DMTX, or sorry about that, or whatever study, the extended stay study where they're doing the intravenous, where, I mean,
it's okay. Well, don't worry about it. I've done it many times. Yeah.
They can stay in, because max, whenever you're just vaporizing it, maybe max 20 minutes I've seen, but like with them, with the intravenous, they can stay 30 minutes, an hour. I think the longest they've stayed is an hour so far. Is that right?
40 minutes from what I know. But yeah, so
but it's almost indefinite. They could stay for 3 hours if they want.
They can stay for weeks, and that's the goal eventually, to basically send people into long expeditions where their mind stabilizes there, and to see if they can extract more information by doing that. Yeah, that's the goal eventually. Which is why they literally. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm having a gut feeling when people start going in for like days at a time that code's going to come into come into, part of it pretty quickly.
Well, I'm not sure. I think that the specificity of the code can only be seen in the beginning with a coherent light, which is why this is a significant discovery. Like that connection was never made before. So now you can't see it with regular light, which it's a huge data point. The fact that it has to be diffracted and it has to be coherent, right? And it tells us something about the world and the connection between consciousness and what we call the physical world. And what's interesting about, so yeah, there's some people that are involved in the research, and also somebody who's not part of the research but is a known person in this kind of research space. And I found this. I mean, obviously, I actually haven't spoken to him, so I don't know what the true nature behind the response. But just as like looking from the outside, I found it peculiar that the response was, "I don't know what to do with that," because I realized that that's a very accurate representation of the state that one occupies when they see the code. It's like Terence McKenna said, you could believe it only if it wasn't happening to you. It's the fact that it's finding out beyond your wildest dreams of finding out. It's when you see it, you're like, wait, what? You basically live at that point. You're living in a sci-fi film, and that is a very almost encroaching experience, I would say. This is why I always tell people in the beginning, kind of like, I really make them understand, like, you can't unsee this, okay? And I don't want to sound like too dramatic, but you can't go back. You can't unsee this. And I'm telling you, and you understand what I'm saying, and even if you believe me, knowing it for sure is a different story. And I want to make sure that people kind of, they understand that, and they understand what that entails. And
right, it's almost in like direct contrast. I don't know if I sent that image to you on Instagram or TikTok, but it's like the download of all the knowledge, and then they've got the Men in Black little zapper at the end. It's like, all right, you've got all the universal knowledge, but now zap, you've got to forget it all. You can't retain any of this like knowledge. But with your discovery, it's something like you're saying, like, no, it sticks with you like way beyond after the experiment's over.
Yeah, no, that's only you retain it. And cool guy 42 is saying, after me and my buddy saw it, it was a really odd feeling like we'd been let in on a secret, which is, yeah, it really feels like that. You're just staring into like something that you like, what?
Seeing a new color for the first time,
seeing something you never thought will ever encounter you in this life, essentially. Let's see. Oh, you're responding. I go back and forth between that and wanting to know absolutely everything. So actually, to your comment, Kegi the leper, is that how you pronounce this? Where would be that arbitrary line that you would suggest that we stop understanding? Would it start with understanding itself? Would it go all the way back to the agricultural revolution, where people just started figuring out that you can actually plan for the future, plant seeds, and then wait for them? This was a technology. This was not known before. So this is something that somebody figured out. Then the fact that you have new ideas that can influence the world and understanding the world, all of these are actual technologies that didn't exist before. All of these things are things we figured out. And what you see on the surface, the technology that we've built, is just a product of all of that. So my question to you is, where is this arbitrary line that you're drawing where you think that God does not want us to know? If it's possible to know things, why is it that you think God doesn't want us to know? If you believe in God and all of that. And another question for you, how do you view the proposition that God is not out there, but it's you and I? Like literally you are God. How do you see this proposition? Real question. Also, let's see what you say. Since he is life, we should endeavor to him. We should worship the creator, not the creation. Yeah, that sounds like old school, brother. That feels that ship has sailed.
Yeah, no matter how much I try to be like, all right, since I've been introduced to the molecule, how many times I'm like, all right, yeah, I want to take a break. I don't want to know all this stuff. Maybe 48 hours goes by, and I'm like, all right, I gotta get back in. I gotta know all of it. Because it's
So
like you said, once you've seen a glimpse of something so magnificent and just expansive, you don't ever forget it.
yeah,
It never like leaves your mind.
and by the way, for me, it's even more than that. So I well, maybe not more than that. Maybe more than that is the wrong words to use here. For me, it's slightly different than that. So it's not so much as like I gotta know, is that I things need to make sense to me. So if you're asking me just drop the need for things to make sense, that I can't do. It's just what I am. It's what my signature is, right? So if I see that, let's say, I don't know, you buy, it's true that there's certain knowledge types that we want to limit. For example, uh, how to synthesize smallpox, right? How to build a nuclear weapon, things like that. Like you don't want just anybody to be able to do that. Now, luckily for us, building a nuclear weapon is something that's also very difficult to do. One individual can't really like go gather the materials, do like it's a very complicated process. You need enormous resources to do this, right? I don't know if I think it's not an accident, but um, so for me, it's not so much as like I gotta know. It's more like what is it this arbitrary decision, which is what I just asked, right? Like, okay, oh, okay, you should know till this point, but not beyond this point. What is it about this point? What happened here, right? And then if our mind is capable of understanding beyond this point, what is it that we need to why is it that we need to come to this point? Are we supposed to pretend that this doesn't exist? We're like, oh, okay, well, we're not supposed to know this, let's move on here. Like it's just, and every time we're gonna bump back against that wall, what do we, every time we're like, oh, don't look there, like, is that what we're supposed to do, right? So either make it unavailable, if it is like a situation where it's a creator or a civilization that is running the things, like make it unavailable to be seen, or don't give us the capacity to be able to understand it. But giving us the capacity to understand it and then making it available to be seen and then asking us for some reason to just pretend don't you didn't see it, that is a weird attitude, right? And then, but more to your attitude, Kagi, it's not that I have any resistance, like I said yesterday, to the idea that the function of what we believe Jesus Christ to be is a real thing. And maybe because of however tensions in the world and all of that, who knows, maybe that is like energy is coming back and all of that, who knows. That's not my thing. Your attitude right there, which is this like very that attitude is condescending from you individually as a person. We don't. I'm going to tell you what's up. If you don't listen, you're going to be punished. That kind of thing. Like this righteousness, that's actually a sin, what you're doing. I don't know if you're aware of this, but according to every belief, including Christianity and Judaism, what you're doing is a sin because you essentially, that is what it's called, to call the name of the Lord in vain. You're using your own human predispensations and needs to be right to actually impart this power that is not yours, and you're trying to claim that power by saying, I am the spokesman for God. You are not. Either God makes itself available for everybody to actually feel and understand, and the people that resist it, it's a different story. But by you doing this right now, and I can feel the energy coming from you, you're not speaking out of a good place. And I want to let you know that what you're doing is an actual sin according to your own belief, which is punishable. So, like I said, humble yourself.
Yeah, because the people like interested in studying this, if you're wanting to go for the Bible, it's knocking the door shall be open, seeking ye shall find. That's more along the lines of the people wanting to go deep in this research or in line with.
Absolutely. There's again, I am very attentive to the space and I'm trying to pay attention. And let me just make sure that I'm not missing anybody on YouTube. Azamonio, what's up, brother? How are you? Feels like the molecule has some firewall with it that prevents you from bringing out certain things from the space in this space. Yeah, for the most part. Curiosity to explore is a core aspect of whatever the F is we are. So if we weren't meant to explore and seek, it wouldn't be so built into our pure essence. I couldn't agree more. Diana with his power, Diana with his power towel, ain't playing no games. I love you, man. No, I just can't stand this like preachy shit. Because you're no different than us, right? So the fact is that there are, and I'm going to keep saying this, there absolutely are elements there that I did not expect to see, that have to do with some religious aspects, that what we perceive as religious aspects, which, in other words, there is a hierarchy, there is someone in charge, there is this universal structure, there is a kind of like a unifying ethical force that kind of enforces the whole system. All of these things, as far as what I saw so far, they're real. Okay. However, as the power as I'm entering the space, and I'm somewhat in an awkward position because I am kind of playing some kind of a mouthpiece for some of this stuff, and at the same time, I've got to be very careful that I'm not like overstepping certain boundaries, that I'm maybe ignoring what is being asked. The rule that I'm following is like, it was there to be seen. I asked multiple times from that space if it's okay that I'm sharing this. The answer that I got was a resounding yes, from what I understood. I went out and put it out to the world. We are where we are. So it's also the case that the message is not always very clear. So sometimes it's not because they're not clear, but because they don't agree with each other. It's not one thing, by the way. There's a whole system, right? So
that is a question I had for you, is that, like, since you've made this discovery, whenever you've gone back into the space, what the entities have said about you making the discovery.
Some encouraging, and some not even have to do with me directly, but just with the fact that they think that this should not be known to any other creatures that are exist in some lower form. But like and again, it's not that I think I have some kind of a central role, but it's like, look, I am playing the role of some kind of a mediator, right? So I'm like, okay, well, make a decision. Like, do you have a court? Do you have a way to make these decisions for everybody? And then inform me. Like, what if you can? It's just like people arguing. What do you want me to do? Like, if you can decide, how is this on me? Right? I can see this. Other people can see this. Make it unavailable. Or if you can't, or you think it's not under the thing that you can control, give me another reason to not talk about it. Show me how it can maybe mess things up. So something, right? And that's never like a very clear thing. And again, this is why I don't think they truly know. But at every point, I'm trying to stay, like I said, as humble as I possibly can. I'm not pretending to have like all the answers. All I know is that there's a reason why this is, or that's my impression, that there has to be a reason why this is discoverable, or why making it undiscoverable is not a possibility. Maybe it is out of their control. Maybe it's a higher pay grade. Who knows, right?
Well, yeah, and the energy behind the synchronicities that led you to the experiment, there's something behind that as well.
Yeah. Reality cookie is missing and murder people. What? Do you understand this message or no? Oh, the cuckoo people. Got it. Let's talk about reality, not fantasy. Homie's talking nonsense. So just so you guys know, because I am when I talk, I don't always look at all the comments. So sometimes when you guys respond, I'm not sure if you're responding to me or to somebody else. And Taiwan Bomb, just so you know, that on this channel in particular, any disagreement is deeply welcomed. But then you have to be more specific. Otherwise, I'm just gonna label you as a moron. So for me, okay. I can tell you this very openly. So just tell me exactly what is your disagreement, so I can respond to it.
I think a lot of people that come on here to your channel and make comments like that, 99% of them have probably never been in the space, which makes it harder for them to grasp these concepts.
No, I understand, but then the attitude should never be that, right? Or correct. I mean, I get, yeah. Cool guy 42 is saying, cat's out of the bag now anyway. I think I asked you this last year, but do you think we should expect to see others in different parts of the world finding the code? Like some Vietnamese Dan. Oh, you mean without actually knowing about it from what I did? So like just independently? I'll give you more than that.
Monkey effect?
Yeah, basically the kind of like what's his face, like a morphic field, right? Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields. No, like they give out the clues to more than one person. So I don't think they never gave me the clue. Or okay, you're right, they gave me clues, but I think it's a matter of figuring it out, right? So you have to kind of like really be paying attention to this and seeking it to actually find it. Um, of course, it's possible. I will give you one better. I think that it is already emerging in different ways. The laser in the code is just one way of seeing one aspect of it. I think that it's already emerging, and the people that I mentioned that I met in the last couple of years that exert this energy of like we're all one, and they're becoming more and more numerous and with more and more conviction, and they don't look like crazy people to me. I think it's actually happening. Like we are actually waking up to this understanding that we're like a larger one. I personally never experienced it. So I've experienced stages in which we are like I've experienced like I guess you can say semi states like that where it's like more expansive, and also I can almost feel like I'm part of this larger thing, but not like full on. I've met individuals that like just I can see in their face and in everything that they express that they literally feel themselves to be you, like you feel yourself to be you, like straight up. Like I can see it. They're not faking it. They're not like they really. They just also see that you can't feel it, so they can't really like fully reach in, but they really experience it. And actually, one of the things that recently one of the people that reached out to me of this labors shared with me is this also on the toes on the toe podcast, on the theories of everything podcast with Kurt Jaimungal, which is usually dedicated to very technical things like physics and biology, and like coming at it from a very very technical perspective. He in the last couple of years he had a few people that were talking about it more from like the I guess spiritual and even religious element. So he's like, that's what I love about his channel. He's very open about it. And the guy shared a clip by this guy. Hold on, I'm gonna have to. You're gonna see me pause on TikTok for 2 seconds. It it's Leo Gura. Maybe you're familiar. I'm not. I wasn't familiar with the guy. Leo Gura. Leo or Leo Gura. Wait. Leo Gura on the Toe podcast. TOE. Look it up. So he had 2 episodes, and I'm sure there's like a clip of him talking about us all being the one. I think this is the most modern representation of this kind of perception. But we're not talking about idealism. We're talking about straight up. No. You and I, we're God. We're God. Like straight up God. And it's a. I would listen to this one. It's interesting, at least for that clip. And the one motif that keeps repeating itself that to me is still very difficult to digest, but I understand that there's some validity there, which is that this insistence that it's not just that all of us are one, but that there's no one else. And that just doesn't compute. And you can see Kurt being confused by that too. He's like, what do you mean? Like what? But obviously what happens to other people's perception? He's like, there are no other people's perception. It was like, what are you talking about? So solipsism? He's like, no. Like, what do you mean? Like, and then he tries to explain it, but it's very clear that you can't really grasp it unless you're actually experiencing it. And one of the things that he was kind of trying to break down, which is that eventually when God goes back to like believing, understanding, remembering that he's all one, in these stages, the thing that you feel yourself to be right now, that's the best way I can describe from what I understand. The thing that you feel yourself to be right now at the core, this experience of me, like right here, right? I think Joe Rogan has a whole rant about like him seeing a dolphin, right? When he's like high out of his mind on a boat. And he's like, and then I started thinking, like, what if the dolphin is exactly like me inside? He just has a very different life experience because of whatever, the way it's built and all of that. But the feeling of me is the same. What if it's exactly the same? And so imagine that the way it feels to be me is exactly what it's like to be to feel like what it's like to be you. It's just that you have all of these overlays on top of it of your personality and everything, but the core feeling is the same. So if I understand correctly from what he was explaining, and also from what I've gathered so far talking to all the people, when God starts remembering, it basically you start going up the channels like this, just converging, and then you start fusing all the feelings of the one without the personalities. That's where you kind of relinquishing the ego. So like the personality goes away, but the feeling stays the same. And eventually this naked feeling of I stays. It's the only thing that exists. And in that sense, there's no one else. There's just this I. That's it. And it's central and it's not moving and it's not doing anything. It just sits there. And the whole thing is just a movie moving around it. And there's something about that, for example, that I'm expressing it right now. So I'm watching it, right? I'm watching myself talk at the same time. And I'm seeing that the experience of it, the conviction of it, from an experiential side, does not exist in me. And this is why when I'm saying it, it sounds different. So I highly recommend to watch this guy. And he's not the only one. I've met people that speak that way, in which you can see they're experiencing it. And when somebody speaks it, that they're experiencing it, there's a different feeling. There's like a recognition. You're like, oh, like there's like something is happening. Okay. And I think it's somewhat similar. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's this book called On Having No Head. Forget who wrote it, but the guy who wrote it basically had this experience for the first time, and he wrote a book about it. And he had an experience when he was in the mountains, I think in the Himalayas or something. And he was sitting in his room, and it was based on a famous picture by this philosopher who drew the same experience, basically just looking from the inside. And he developed this technique that actually exists in some modulation in different meditative forms. That I'll give you the example. So if you look, so I'll give you the way to do it. So if you look at something, doesn't matter what it is, but it's preferable if it's something natural. So a plant or a tree, it's easier to do it with something natural. YouTube, I'm going to comment on everything in one moment. So if you look at a plant or something, you can try it now. You can really do it with anything, honestly, but it's just easier with something external and natural. So if you look at it, right, then there's this one gesture you can do with your attention, which is that you ask yourself, but not really even with words, just conceptually, you turn the attention back on what's looking. So essentially you're asking, what is it that is seeing the plant? What is it that is looking, like actually? And then if you use words, then you can't do it, because then the logical framework kicks in and goes like, what do you mean? Because it thinks in third person. So it kicks in and goes, what do you mean? Like me, I'm physical body right here. I have a brain that's somehow responsible for giving me this experience. There's no mystery here. What are you talking about? Just me. I'm Joe Schmo, whatever, and I'm looking at this. What is the question? I don't get it. This is why you don't ask it with words inside. You just do a gesture. The gesture is you twist the attention back with the intent of who's looking. Okay. And if you do it often enough, and by the way, it's not like deep inside, it's right on the surface. This is why you don't have to try hard. Like, don't try and go hard on it. That's not the point. It should happen like this. And if it doesn't, reset, do it again. Reset, do it again. Reset, do it again. It's like it's supposed to happen in a split second. Okay. And it takes some practice, but don't try and do it hard. Just simple, light. Okay. So you twist the attention. Actually, when you're looking at yourself, like on a video, like I'm doing right now, to some degree, it's even easier to do, I discovered, because you're seeing a representation of yourself, which almost like it takes the job of being you, so you don't have to be that. So it's almost like you're like, okay, well, I see the image, but what is it that is seeing? What is doing the seeing? Don't think third person eyes. Like, what is experiencing this plant right now? What is act? And then when you do it often enough, and this is like the meditative practice that exists, and he kind of wrote his own version of that in the book, which is On Having No Head, which all of a sudden there's like something happens, and you're like, whoa, like you stepped outside of the matrix, and it's almost equivalent of having no head, because what you realize is that there's just seeing. There's no head, there's no eyes, there's no plant. There's just seeing, and that seeing includes the hint of the observer, the plant, this moment of just seeing. There's just seeing exists. That's it. And when you do it often enough, something happens, and there's eventually you open a gap that is wide enough, and you can start experiencing the world from a different place. Essentially, you can call it non-dual, or like the death of the ego, right? But this is not metaphorical. This is what I want to keep emphasizing, because from my conversation with people, I noticed that there's this misconception. Some people believe that the death of the ego is some kind of virtue signaling goal you're supposed to arrive at. And it was like, I don't have a lot of ego. I don't really care about myself. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that the ego is a mental representation of what you believe yourself to be. But that thing, when you look closely enough by doing this trick or other tricks, you discover conclusively, not, oh, well, you can see it that way or you can see it that way. No. You discover conclusively that it doesn't exist. This is why the phrase that I mentioned in some other daily talk that we had, that some Buddhist monks repeat, is there is no one here that all of this is happening to. There's no one here that all of this is happening to. And when you hear this intellectually, it sounds kind of interesting, and it might be an interesting thing to repeat to people because it's like profound or whatever, right? But there's if you can have the experience of that fact, that is a different thing. It has nothing to do with how much you care about having a car or a house, or none of that. It's just the fact that you don't experience the self anymore, which is the truth about the state of affairs. It's not a proposition. It's not a matter of opinion. It is the truth. There's no one here that all of this is happening to. Now, I've had this state before, so I know this for a fact. But I have to admit that when I go back to being my regular representation, I don't know that in this moment. But I do know that when you're in that moment. But I do know that when I'm in that moment. I don't know if it stops it or not when I do the puzzle thingy that I asked me to do. But let me just answer a couple of questions on YouTube, and then if you guys have questions, I'll answer them, and then I will say the final piece on this thing. No, like they give heading out to play some basketball, but just wanted to say I'm loving these live chats. Thank you for holding the space for the exploration, my dude. Thank you so much, Azamoon. I appreciate you. May your jumper be wet. You guys should really go to YouTube just for the comments by Cool Guy 42. I agree. There is a large scale shift. There is an improvement of a quality of consciousness that I haven't seen in my life. Reminds me of a wise person that once said, "You don't want peace of mind. You want peace from mind." Very profound. On Having No Head, Zen and the Rediscovery of the Obvious by Douglas Harding. Thank you so much, Cool Guy 42. Again, On Having No Head, Zen and the Rediscovery of the Obvious. So one final thing I want to say about this before I move on to the comments on TikTok. That component, the reason I'm mentioning all of this is I'm noticing people that previously you would consider, this kind of way of seeing the world something that would require a lifetime of work, which I think for the most part was true. This is why people devoted their lives to live in, monasteries in the mountains somewhere, meditating for 30 years, right? I think that something happens right now in history where we're opening into a new space. And I always equate it to if you're in a game, on different levels, you have different tools available to you. And even if you see some tools that are kind of grayed out because you're not high enough level to use them, when you get to a high enough level as humanity, almost all of a sudden these tools become more available. They become not gray, but you can use them. And I think one of the things that just became available is to reach, I don't know if full enlightenment, but to get to high levels of awakening like that without the need for all this work. All you got to do is open yourself up to it. I really think this is actually available, but you have to be open to it. You have to have some of the conceptual framework in place so your mind doesn't freak out. You have to have some of the kind of sensitivities, and you have to let go. You have to let go of the need of all the metaphysical, of all the physical things. Doesn't mean you need to go live in the street now, but you need to stop caring truly about, things that are, physical pleasures like food and sex and all these things. And from that place, actually, ironically, all the best versions of all of these things will emerge because you don't care. So they just they hover right in front of you. Azamoon is saying that is a very interesting point. Is it our access to helper molecules, or is it the meta shift in the quality of potential of consciousness that making the time to reach these knowings quicker? I think it's both. And one of these people that I was in contact with, good good question. That is, so I don't want to reveal too much of the person, but they hold a very high position. So this is how I know they're, not crazy, because they have a lot of responsibility. They're managing a very large corporation worth millions of dollars, and this individual is experiencing almost everything I'm experiencing in the molecule without the molecule. And they say to me, I obviously can't say this to anyone, because if I do, that's the end of everything, the career, the everything. But he says, I know that all of it, like, I know I'm not crazy. I'm experiencing it, and I found a way to balance this in myself. And I always asked, I always ask him different questions about that, because it's interesting to triangulate the differences. And he said something very interesting to me. He said that I think he said, I can't know for sure, but it seems to me that because this is somehow mind made, or what we would call mind made, like everything, when you take these substances, it is essentially a statement to the rest of the larger mind that you want to now partake in this particular experience. They're like the folder that you click on the computer to open a file. The folder is not real, but it contains real information. When you click on the folder, it represents an actual action you're trying to take within the space. So until you reach the point in which you can just glide through hyperspace by yourself without needing to click, so you can just go into the content essentially. Until you reach that point, you need these signifiers, you need the folders, and the folders are the physical object. So when you partake in a particular substance, or you partake in a particular action to bring about a particular experience, they're equivalent to something you're clicking on in a computer. They're a physical representation that tells the system, oh, you want to engage with this. And this, by the way, is very profound, because it applies to every single thing that we don't even think about in terms of clicking on something. For example, the way we talk to people. We don't realize it, but we are addicted to certain kinds of interactions. And the people who tend to get pissed off very easily is because there's something in them that needs that interaction. So they talk a certain way without even noticing. They have a harshness in their voice that always invokes that interaction with other people very easily. And they don't understand why people get pissed off at them. They're like, I don't understand. I just work, just pissed. Well, that's because it literally already expressed in your being, because you clicked on it so often that that's the only route you know. And relinquishing the need to be a part of any kind of frame of experience that gives you only these kind of experiences opens you up to the totality of the entire gamut of whatever is possible. And that is a very scary thing, because if you think about floating in truly in infinite hyperspace, that is actually a scary proposition, right? So we're almost blessed to have the physical world kind of telling us what's possible, so we don't have to think into infinity. But that's essentially what happens when you fully relinquish all control. And so I do believe that it's all one thing. You both, these substances, they lead you to more profound places because it became available for the collective versus it not being available to the collective. I've noticed a shift in the experience and the molecule from 10 years ago. I've done it so often that I can tell you there's a difference. Now, of course, you can always claim that because I got older, my experiences might have changed. But no, I'm noticing it from other people as well. A lot more people report certain kinds of experiences in the molecule that weren't there before. I know that. And all of a sudden they're available. So this is something I was alluding to the other day too, which is that space seems to also be evolving. Oh, the final thought I wanted to give on this is I highly recommend to listen to this thing that I just mentioned. Again, Leo, I'm so terrible with names. Leo Gura, Gura, Leo Gura, on the Toe podcast, because just like the other individuals I mentioned to you that I met throughout these couple of years, that person, I can tell you with absolute certainty, he has experienced this, if not experiencing this on a regular basis. So he's just like experiencing it. So when he's speaking about it, it will not sound like what I'm talking about, because I'm still speaking from a very cerebral place. And I'm sure it also has a role, because I find myself in a position where it's easier for me to maybe sound intelligible to maybe people that are more scientifically minded. And I think this will be important to bring them into the project and help them put it through the scientific method. But I encourage everybody to experience that kind of talk from somebody who's clearly experiencing it. I think that's very important. Okay.
I got a question, Danny.
Sure,
so
sure.
you mentioned the person that's running the multi-million-dollar company. He's coming to the same conclusions you are without the molecule. Are you saying that he's never experienced the molecule, or
No, he's experienced molecules. Not that
Okay.
one. He's experienced other molecules, but he's not. Here's the thing: he didn't come to a conclusion. And I know it's probably a matter of just linguistic and what you probably mean to say the same thing, but I want to make that distinction. He didn't come to a conclusion. He knows it for a fact. He knows it for a fact, just like he knows that this is here, because he's like, this is part of my regular space. And he had, as far as, and it's going to sound insane to people right now, and I'm aware of that, and it took me a second to like kind of sit with that one, but I have no reason to doubt that what he's saying is true, because I've interacted with him enough, and he's like a very serious individual. He had physical objects materialize for him out of nothing. That's the level he got to.
Wow.
So, and what's interesting, he said that in that moment he knew that it's not about proving it, it's about experiencing it. And the second, because he was, one of the thoughts was like, well, I got to run and grab a camera and take a picture of this. And then he's like, no, it's not about proof. It's about experience. And then it just dissolved. But he's like, I'm telling you, it was real. I held it. But it's interesting because I know for a fact that it manifested for him and not for me, for example, because it knows that I will go grab a camera. And it knows he won't. Do you understand?
Just like what Terrence McKenna we've spoke about a lot. Like if we could just bring back one artifact from that space, but it won't materialize for the people that want to show it off to the world.
Because it's not about showing it off.
Right.
And this is why one of the conundrums that I live with on a regular basis is, wait a second, in the context of this exact thing we're saying right now, what is the significance and what is the value of what I found? Why is it good to share this? And I don't have a good answer. All I know is that I asked if it's okay. The answer seemed to have been yes. And when I did, it flowed out of me. It didn't feel like it was resistance inside of me. There was no like, weird energies. It was like the first video I recorded, I don't know if it came across that way, but for me, it was just like very flowy. Okay. And then a lot of doors opened for me because of that. Not just on a personal level, but like these connections of like meeting all these people, meeting people that previously I would never entertain, that they actually, are for real, but they are for real. And I met them because of this video. And then I met people that are like, just like people that I would never think I would interact with in this life. And all of a sudden I am. And to whatever extent, it's important that we all understand these concepts. The best explanation I can give, and I don't know if it has any truth to it, but that's the best one that I have so far, which is that my role is to basically bridge some of the people who are only talking the spiritual talk and not interested to justify themselves to people who can benefit from that, and vice versa, which is that throwing away science and everything we achieved on the mental side is also very important. It's like this is why I always say this: we have to bring the two hemispheres of humanity together to open these gates. And if I have to make a wild guess, and maybe it's just me romanticizing this, but I see my role as a bridge, because I can kind of talk the science talk to some degree, and I can also understand and experience some of the stuff more from the spiritual side, even if not all of it. But I know there's there, and I know it's real, and communicate it in a way that is more, concrete, is something that I feel that is lacking and not very present. And maybe this is why I'm in the position that I am now. I have no idea if that's true. I have no idea. That is the story that I'm telling myself to make sense of the events. But it's also clear to me that the chances that I am this special person who found this one thing that is more unique than anything else, they're basically zero, which tells me that the chances are that what I found is unique only in a certain category, but it is not unique in the grand scheme of things. It is just one representation of something that is available for everybody to know on different levels and in different ways. And if we can just agree that we should look from the perspective that we all occupy, we will all see what it is from that frame of reference. So we might see it differently. It doesn't matter if you believe it's Jesus. It doesn't matter if you believe we're all one. It doesn't matter if you believe it's a higher civilization talking to us. It's all the same process unfolding, and it's making itself available to us through the kind of sense that we can entertain each and every one of us individually, and us as a society, as a collective. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Let me see. There's just one great I am. Yes, there's exactly right. I am the one who observed my thoughts, who experienced my emotions, etc. Yeah, so that is the one I am. But I guess what I'm saying is that you can have an experience in which you have a conclusive well, I don't want to say experience too many times, but you have a conclusive experience of that central thing not being there. There's just your emotions, there's just your feelings, they're all happening, but the thing that you think is in the middle experiencing them is not actually there. That is what I'm referring to. It's kind of like the hold on, let me get to some of the messages, because otherwise I'm gonna have to scroll forever. That's what's happening to them. Estrada, I'm not sure what you referring to. Sorry, because I'm way behind. The Zen Masters. I've been here many years. It's so sad and hard not to feel for them. Let's see. Have you seen what happens if you put on laser protection glasses? Yeah, depending which kinds. Some of them will allow you to see it with more coherence, and I think it's because they eliminate some of the noise, some of the glisten. And others, if it's the exact wavelength you're looking through, you just won't see anything because they block just that one wavelength. You're a starseed. Thank you, Shay Renee. Well said, agree. I love the I cubed M to the power of 6 U 9 or to the power of 9. I agree.
Yeah, great handle.
Wait. I have oh wow, there's a lot of comments here. Like knocking on the door. Leo Gura, Infinite Consciousness, God Realization, Part 1. That's thank you, Cool Guy 42 with the finger on the trigger. Anybody who wants to watch that thing that I said? It's called Leo Gura, Infinite Consciousness, God Realization, Part 1. I have a suspicion that this universe we inhabit has a purpose for trying to solve for infinity. It's like a prisoner of infinity escape room. It's very similar to what I saw, actually. And this information or solution is useful to a larger whole. That's exactly what I'm saying. The code, exactly. You can think of the code as the Akashic Records. Or another way to look at it is a training simulation or womb for a being or consciousness being able to inhabit infinity, because it's easier said than done. Wait. Or another way to look at it is a training simulation or womb for being a consciousness being able to inhabit infinity, because it's easier said than done. Yeah. It's almost like let me write these ideas down so I don't forget, because I want to make sure that I also go through questions. So
that always reminds me of the story of the egg. I mean, I always bring that up.
Yeah, no. That's you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I wanted to bring up as well. So go ahead.
Because I mean, I've had that experience. Like, you know, once you've gone through the wormholes, you've seen the entities, the hells. Like, I've gone so deep that I get to that space where it's just all that is, and it's just like it has imparted on me like a phrase, like, you know, in the end, it's just you and me, right? Like it's just you in awareness. Like, it's just like you were trying to describe earlier, like you looking at an object and seeing it in third person. It's like, you know, in the end, it is just you, right? Which is me, which is everything. So it's just
yeah. And I mean, and by the way, my mind, I don't know if you noticed, but in the story The Egg, you still have this moment where he's asking, okay, but what's beyond that? And he says, well, and then he opens this kind of slit and he says, well, like, it's something you won't be able to comprehend, but clearly there are others there, right? So there's still like a thing where it's just like, maybe you're a baby, that your cycle before you're born, and actually it makes perfect sense. The egg, like, if we want to expand the idea, and maybe it's what it's alluding to, but I don't know if it's expressed overtly in the story. But essentially, like, if you think about like a super advanced civilization in which each and every one of the individuals is essentially a god, and literally can whip out like content, like just like willy-nilly, just like whatever happens, you just like put it out, right? Imagine a problematic child of that kind. Holy shit. Okay?
Right.
So they need to make sure that whomever's birthed went through the entire gamut of all the possible ways. They got it out of their system. So by
Right.
the time they're born, they have their act together. And that makes perfect sense to me. Um,
Because in the story he's talking to him, he's like, "Yeah, you're every person that's ever lived." Like, "Oh, so I was Jesus? Yeah. Oh, I was Hitler? Yeah, you were him too." It's like you've been every single person
yep.
up to this point. So
And now you're something completely different. And yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. Um, and so, and actually, so you nailed it. You that's exactly what I wanted to say. So perfect timing. There was another Terrence rant in which he talked about the fact that it seems like we're going through a very similar process right now in history to a birth, and he kind of went into the specifics, right? So first of all, he said, notice that like if you walk into when birth is happening, it looks, if you don't know what's going on, it looks like an emergency, right? There's screams, there's blood everywhere, it's dramatic, there's real danger involved, and to both the mother and the infant, right, the fetus. And it from the perspective of the fetus, what happens is that it lives in this like perfect cocoon, like warm environment. It's being fed all the time. It's in a completely different substrate. It's in a liquid, by the way. And then all of a sudden something starts happening. You slowly kind of flip, and then eventually, after this like very very slow flipping process, all of a sudden things start shifting very dramatically, and all of a sudden the walls are closing in, and you're like, what is happening? And then you just like being pushed out through this like super uncomfortable situation into something that you have no idea what it is. And then there's a light, some kind of a light like from the other side of this like weird tunnel that just presses you, and it feels like the end of the world, because it is the end of this world. You're like, for the fetus, that is the end of that. And now go and try and explain to a fetus what it's like to be a lawyer, like, you know. And that's essentially the situation we're in. And we reach the stage of like the birth is happening, and what is on the other side is the equivalent of trying to explain what it's like to be a physicist or a spiritual guru to a fetus. Okay, it's not it's not a possibility. Whatever's on the other side is completely decoupled from anything that is familiar to us, but you're going. And the more you resist, the more painful it is, both for you and the mother. So the smoother in order to make the process smoother, if you can train the fetus to let go, it's better for everybody. And it's just, and what the other thing that he said was very interesting. He said, if you look at the evolution of a cell to a fetus, it recapitulates every single organism on the genetic tree. So it starts as a single cell, and then it multiplies, just like what happened on Earth. And then it becomes a fish. Like, it literally looks like a fish. Then it becomes like a tiny mammal, it kind of looks like a piglet. And then it becomes a human. And then it becomes like a more thing that looks more like a human. Also, will starts as females. But that's very interesting that it recapitulates all the steps of the evolutionary tree. And then you being birthed into the world. And who's to say that the process stopped? It just continues, just on a different level. So that combined with the idea of the egg, I found a very informative frame of reference.
right, and I know you've experienced this before on the molecule. It's like the extreme pressure, and then those moments where it feels like you do bust through some type of membrane, especially when you go into the dome space. You know, are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, talking about the egg, it's just like the fractal nature of everything, like from the human birth, and then us, you know, the story of the egg, cracking open the egg and going into that. It's just, and then even And then there's levels even above the God that's creating us right now, because in the story of the egg, it's like, no, there's others like me,
Yeah.
Like we've got our own thing going too. And we're trying to evolve the same way that you just evolved, just on a higher level. So
yeah, it just keeps going. And
Right.
maybe ultimately there is this one unified all the way at the top thing. But this is why I keep saying, I think I can be wrong, but it seems to me, my intuition tells me that whatever that is not what people talk about when they think they talk about it. That is not it.
I agree.
You see what I mean? Like they maybe talk about that one thing that is right above us, that is there. There's still many like him that you kind of becoming slowly. Like we're all slowly becoming it. But when people say the one, I think they mean the ultimate one. I don't think that's it. I think that is so unfathomable that your mouth should not even be able to move. Like if your mind would be referring to it, I don't think your mouth would be able to move physically to utter it. You know what I mean? That's how like crazy beyond that thing is. And there's a really good it's probably, again, it's very individual, of course, so I can't know if it's going to be as profound for you, but I have to say that from everything I've ever heard or read, this is one of the most profound pieces of audio that I've ever heard that got me into the space of like, dude, whoa. And that is, if you search for it's called, it's by Alan Watts. One of those. I don't know which one. I don't know which one is more plausible. It's called. Hold on. Let me go to actual YouTube. Okay, here it is. It is called. Okay, here it is. If you just YouTube Alan Watts philosophy, nature of God, in parentheses, nature of God. I think if you do Alan Watts God, there's going to be a bunch popping up. It's the one with the picture of kind of like a guy looking shadow with the snake on his right hand side and is holding his hand like this, and there's a galaxy here. That's the one, that's the thumbnail you want. It's 25 minutes and 47 seconds. Don't skip. If you're gonna listen to it, put headphones in right before you go to sleep or something. Don't skip. I'm telling you, don't skip, because
I've listened to that one so many times.
Yeah. Because right, it's a good one, because the tendency is to think, well, I kind of know where this is going. You don't. And what's interesting is that he takes so many turns in which you think, oh, I kind of knew what he was going, and he's not going where you thought he was going. And then at the end, it gives you this, like, even though I'm sure that you've heard these words arranged in that order before, after this ride of 25 minutes, it has a different weight to it. And there's that part at the end of business when he says beyond the father figure, beyond the mother figure.
Oh yeah.
That part is so powerful. It's crazy. So I highly recommend it. Cool Guy 42, stop deleting messages. I will not have this on my YouTube feed. If you put it in, it's worth being on. It's worth being in.
Instead of like going to sleep to like brown noise at night, I just go to sleep to Terrence McKenna and Alan Watts lectures.
Shai Renee says, I swear I just watched that. I mean, I'm telling you, there's no coincidences here. My uncle was a friend of his. Your uncle was a friend of Alan Watts? Now that's honestly, that's a really cool name drop. That's amazing. I'm jealous. And we shifted big time. I agree. I have arrived. People keep saying creator. This is like the third time somebody said creator in this chat. It's really interesting. And there was another thing I wanted to say, but it escapes my mind right now. I guess it will come back if it's important. Brown noise makes me brown. You know which one I like green noise. I don't know why. There's something about it. Almost reminds me like being in a field, like in an open field with wind. If you Google green noise, it's really great. Azamoon is saying, oh, we saw that one. Okay. It was up to you, and Guy 42 says, it was up to you and Adaptus, and they flipped a coin. Did you know that CEO guy prior to the revelation? No. For his revelation, you mean? Or my revelation, or which one? He contacted me after I put out the videos, if that answers your question. Which means that I obviously already had my discovery, and he already obviously had his revelations. John X Worthy, Blue Noise. I've never heard of Blue Noise. I mean, I've never heard it. Wait, John X Worthy. I did have this like there's different experiences of this flavor of the We're on One, and one that is actually is, and I think that even the guy that I just mentioned, Leo, he literally used the word bleak in that thing, kind of talking about that experience from the dual perspective, and that's what it felt like. It's so bleak. It's so like it's the biggest gut punch you will ever get. Like if you have this experience that you truly are the only thing that exists, people that experience it from this perspective, I've had it, and I know two other people that have had it, and I'm sure that many other had it. You had it too, right? And
Right.
when you experience it from the perspective of just the what you usually are, from this like dual thing, it is the biggest gut punch you will ever get, because it's like, dude, like it's the deepest loneliness you can possibly feel, because like literally there's no one else. You're like, what the fuck? It feels like prison, right? And then also you're all powerful, so like nothing matters, right? And this is also why I got into the habit of always pointing out to people that we always want the compassion of God, but we never ask ourselves, do we have compassion for God? Like, do we have compassion for that state of awareness? Because the grace of God is that we get to go to sleep, and we don't have to be for a little bit, you know. And but I am convinced that there is a state in which the thing truly experiences like the all, in which that is not a torture like it comes across when you just experience it from the limited perspective of the self. And Estrella saying I've had it too. Yeah. So, and Shai Renee saying that, but God is the absence of bleak. Yeah, so I would assume that when you're in that, so first of all, we don't really know what it's like to be God, right? I mean, with everything that I said, from this perspective, when you are this unitary thing, you don't actually comprehend that. But I do believe that, yeah, that, or I would like to believe that you are in this state of eternal bliss and love. But something tells me that it's not that simple. But maybe it's just my mind, you know. That's a great perspective to ask if we have compassion for God. Yeah, it's like, do we can?
It also makes sense that like once you get to that level and like all powerful, all knowing everything, like the first thing you would want to do is break yourself up into infinite amount of pieces and forget that you are that, and slowly over eternity come back to that. It's like, all right, I don't want to be here too long like this.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. One of the people that I know have had this. He's a friend. He's a famous person, and he told me, he told me about that experience, and then he's like, it's interesting because I don't know if God doesn't want to remember, because like right now, I really love my life, like I really love everything. Like some people let things like that like really kind of destroy their life, but because he acquired it in later age and is like really worked hard for it, like he's really enjoying all of it, the money, the fame. And he like he said like I'm so grateful, like I love my life, and I wonder if God would want to remember.
Well, that's why I always use that phrase: we die to remember what we live to forget. Because whenever we do die, we go back to that all-knowing state. It's like, all right, I'm ready to like do the memory wipe and do this over again in Danny Goler's life, though, or the business's life. Like I don't, everything goes back to the egg every time I think about it.
Yeah. Wesley Quinn is saying sounds like Russell. Russell who? Peters?
Could you think of playing any video game you've ever played and you go to the cheats menu and put God mode on? It's like you could have put 60 hours into a game, but you put God mode on, you're like, all right, after an hour, it's awesome. Yeah, I can do whatever I want, but it's way more fun when, like you said, you got to unlock those levels to get the tools that are grayed out. And it's really not that, it's only fun for a short amount of time when you've got everything unlocked.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experiencing it, like a gradual, I don't know if I would call it awakening, because I do think it's a loaded word. Not because I think it's not real. I think it's absolutely real. I just think that maybe what I'm experiencing is still not on that level of like full awakening, even though I've had moments of non-dual. I've had moments of like, not rapture, but like true heart opening. I do think that he says, okay, it does answer my question. He found you like I did, Googling for answers. It's not the cosmic joke. Like God intended. Dude, you guys really got to go to YouTube just for seeing cool guy 42 comments. I'm telling you, you're missing out. He's hilarious. Russell Brand. No, that's not Russell Brand. It would be a cool person to know. But yeah, kind of like that. And hold on, let me see. I actually thought you maybe met Russell Brand, but I forgot his actual last name. So thank you for reminding me. I'm 63 in human years. I was raised with a universal conscious awareness. Well, you're lucky because, as I'm sure you know, not everybody were. Um, Later age, like Noah was 900 years old, as if that's a palpable. Actually, I mean, listen, the coolest Kyle. I think I would assume your name is Kyle. I'm glad we got the coolest one. I really think that we don't like forget about like the spiritual stuff. I really think that people like Brian Johnson or somebody of his successors will definitely succeed eventually. I don't think we physically have to die. But hey, maybe it's just wishful thinking. But if I can, I will definitely live to 10,000 years old. If I can live like in a good condition, obviously, not like I'm 105. That would be terrible. Wait, what was I talking about? You the last thing you said, the business? No, he's not.
I mean, where are we?
Go ahead. No, the last thing you said was after the egg. What was the thing that you were talking about?
I mean, we were talking about just having the
God dying to forget. Yeah. Okay, so we live to say your quote again. Thank you, cool guy.
We died to remember what we lived to forget.
We died to remember what we lived to forget. That is a real. I know I wrote it down already, but let me actually write it down again. It's so good. It's right up there with Righteous Roombas. We die.
It's like that overwhelming sensation of hyper reality, the feeling of being more in a space of being more real than real. It's just that instant familiarity of like, oh wow, like this is where this is actually home, or this is the baseline that I've come from.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, now I remember what I wanted to say, which is that so along these lines, I do have this like kind of, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a vision, it's not like a dream that I've had, but it's almost like a it cannot be any other way kind of conviction. And of course, I don't know if that's the case, but it's just like how it lives inside of me, which is like, imagine you are going on this crazy journey in which all of this is happening, whatever your life circumstances are right now. And then you just keep living through whatever mechanisms, like either whatever Brian Johnson is trying to do or some genetic modifications combined with that. We solve we solve death, no more death. You keep going, you live, you instantiate yourself in different substrates, whatever, you advance into like way more advanced civilizations. You literally go through like all of the solar system, then the galaxy, and you like become the president or whatever. Like your life story over like millions of years, just insane, right? And then eventually you reach this place where you just like you find this one thing where you go into this parallel universe or whatever. Like imagine the craziest sci-fi scenario you can possibly fathom, and you reach this place and there's this black rock and it's like so shiny that it's a perfect reflection, and you come near it and you look and you are staring at yourself, and then you realize this whole time all of it was just here, you staring at this black rock. It's like you were like, oh right, like you were always here in this place, and just like this is the rock, kind of like Midnight Gospel where you sticks his head into the thing.
Oh
But
Yeah,
basically,
just take the goggles off.
it's not you. It's not like you basically just snap out of it, just like you daydream, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, that all of these millions of years of your life was just daydream, and then you are it, like you're it, like you're God. This is it, and then you just okay, well, going into another one, just go,
Right.
keep going, basically.
And what the coolest Kyle is saying, like when he says, "I remember everything," those people that claim they remember their past lives and stuff. I think Terrence Howard's most recent interview with Joe Rogan, he was talking about how, he's a person that, he remembers like multiple past lives that he's had. So you're talking about living for 10,000 years or so, or millions of years. I mean, but there's people out there that, they'll live 80 years and then transition, go up to the astral for a minute, come back again, live another 50 years as another person. And I've heard some people claim that they remember 15, 20, 30 past lives that they've had, and they've retained all the information and knowledge from those lives. I know, I mean, it's rare, but there's people out there claiming that they
Yeah.
have that ability.
Was it? Well, I don't know who that was. That the same guy that was always going on Aubrey Marcus's podcast, Matthias something. Is that the same guy?
Maybe, but I'm referring to what Terrence Howard said at the beginning.
Oh, Terrence Howard. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. No. I thought you. Okay. No. I thought you were talking about some other person. By the way, the coolest Kyle. That is a great question that I actually honestly didn't think about, but I think it's a very important question. You said, what does the rock represent? I'm not sure. I think it represents the reflection. So if you like this infinite perception, then according to some technical ideas by Bernardo Kastrup, which I think hold water, which is that the universal mind would have a different kind of experience than any mind inside of existence, because it doesn't have an external boundary. And this little fact about it not having an external environment essentially means that it has nothing that it's like to be in relation to anything else for it. And because of that, it has no goals, no strides, no nothing. It doesn't have, because of it, it does not have a self-awareness. But I mean, who knows, right? Look, we don't really know. But I would assume that maybe the rock would represent some way for it to have awareness in the sense of self versus just being this infinite thing that just is. Again, obviously, we're toying with things here that are just like, this is why it's so clear to me that this kind of game that we're playing right now, it's kind of like more like intellectual entertainment that has some validity spiritually, because it might encourage somebody to kind of look deeper into these things. But this is why I keep saying I encourage anybody and everybody to hear this kind of these kind of expressions from people that clearly are experiencing it, because it brings, there's something about the vibration of their voice that it comes through. That's like, through the vibration you can feel it more, you can almost like partake a little bit in what they're experiencing.
You've seen the Black Mirror episode Brain Test, right?
No.
So it's a spoiler alert.
I see your comments, by the way, Cool Guy 42. I'll respond in a moment. Go ahead. Sorry.
We're just talking about kind of like the reflection in the rock. There's a Black Mirror episode. The title of it's Brain Test, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But they're testing out this new tech in the future to where it's like a device that you put over the skull, and they're testing out this new video game. So this guy, they put it on him, and he goes through the whole episode, like the whole hour episode. And at the very end, he goes through the craziest shit you can imagine. And he comes out, and they take the device off, and they're like, all right, how was the first 20 seconds of the game to you? So it's just like, whoa, I just went through like a whole hour.
Yeah. I saw this thing. I don't know if it's real or not, but I don't know if this is a real proposition that was made. But by the way, Estrella, I appreciate you. And to Kyle, yeah, it would be infinite. It would be completely boundless. It would have no. By definition, it is itself. Oh, I remember the other thing I wanted to say. Let me just write it down so I don't forget again. Okay. And to your question, Cool Guy 42, can you ask this dude if he's had any molecule-ish experiences in his sleep or waking sleeping? You're talking about the business right now in TikTok, or you asking about the CEO guy? He also thinks one equal. He also thinks times one equals two. Wait,
the Terrence Howard guy.
yeah. No, so I don't know if he's asking you or the other guy talking here. So he's asking you. He's asking if you had any molecule-ish experiences in your sleep or waking sleeping.
Well, I lucid dream every night when I go to sleep, and that's been going on since I was like 5 years old. Like, I fly in my dreams and do the craziest shit you can imagine every single night when I go to sleep. So I don't know if but I don't remember like past lives or anything like that. But I lucid dream and fly around and do whatever the hell I want every night when I go to sleep.
So I hope you got your answer. That is kind of wild. Any interactions? Oh, he's asking any interactions with entities.
He's saying
in your lucid dreams.
Not the way it is in the molecule space. No, it's more of like in the dream space. It's more like I'm surrounded by like NPCs almost. It doesn't feel like they're ever like conscious entities I'm interacting with. It almost feels every time I'm like flying around, everybody's like, how the fuck are you doing that? Like, I'm like, well, this is a dream. Like, y'all can do this too, right? And then they just look dumbfounded, like, holy shit.
Also, you're being asked, what's the best lucid dream technique?
Some of the things that I did, like when I was younger, I think I read something online about it, but whenever you are awake, conscious, going into rooms and flicking the light switch on and off.
Oh, yeah, it was in Waking Life in that movie you were talking about, right?
Yeah. So I started doing that because if you do it in the dream, the lights will never turn off, no matter how many times.
Oh, so then you remember that you're in a dream, basically? So you use some kind of a something to tell you that you're dreaming, basically?
Right. Trying to look if there's a digital clock anywhere, the numbers will always be scrambled in the astral space. That'll make you go lucid. Trying to consciously look down at your hands if you're in a dream, that'll make you go lucid. Because if you can look down and look at your hands in a dream, it'll immediately.
Yeah. Cool Guy 42 is saying also looking at your watch is a good technique. And by the way, a quick answer to Casey Queen. What is a molecule dream? I think he's asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cool Guy 42, but I think he's asking, did you ever have the experience the same way that it is on the molecule while you're dreaming? I've had that. In the dream, I've actually smoked and then had a full-on molecule experience, like the way it feels on the molecule. I don't know if that's what he was asking, but I think that's what he meant.
I've done other substances in dreams, but I haven't been lucky enough to have the molecule available in the dream before. But I've been on had other like intoxicating experiences while in the dream state, from being like a sober dream to like, oh shit, all of a sudden I'm wasted in my dream right now, but on alcohol, but not.
Yeah, there's also this thing that they sell, I think on Amazon at this point, you can buy it probably, which is like, it's basically not, but you can build it yourself. Basically it's like night shades. You just put the thing on your face, right? And inside it has a little red lamp attached to a timer. And then you time it to know kind of like you have to calculate when you're going into REM sleep. And then in that time, it will activate the red light. So because it's right on your eyelid, it will come through in your dream. So basically, it will remind you that like there's a red light. You're like, what is that red light? You're like, oh yeah. And then you remember. And this is one of the best ways to actually all of a sudden wake up inside the dream. So that's
wow. That reminds me of another technique, another crude technique I've used somewhat like that before that kind of tech was out, was just setting an alarm at like 2 a.m.
But doesn't it wake you up?
Yeah, when you wake up, but then you turn the alarm off and go right back to sleep.
No, so that's supposed to wake you up inside the dream. You're not even waking up.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So they started testing this first, and that's how they did it in a lab, actually. But then now it's like so readily available. I'm pretty sure you can just order it on Amazon, or you can just get, a simple art. Actually, no, just get it on Amazon, because if you get like the Arduino and you got to calculate, just get the thing. I think it's just easy enough. Aren't you living the dream now? I would say no. I think that the dream is less real than this. I think that there's entry points to dreams that might go to other places. I agree with that. But you have to agree that most dreams are much more murky than this, right? They're much more kind of like flowy. They're not as concrete. Things are not as continuous over time. You're here, all of a sudden you're somewhere in the zoo. Like, just sometimes it's just nonsense, right? And also visually, it's much less visually acute. The edge detection is not as sharp, right? So I would say that the dream is less real in that sense. And this is also why when you go into the molecule space, it's so clear that it's more real, because all these elements I just mentioned, they're more. Like, the visual acuity goes up, everything's sharper, all of that stuff. And I do want to say this because I forget every time, this concreteness that I'm talking about, because one of the things that people that never had these experiences always feel uncomfortable with, which is that they say, well, how do you really know? And then it kind of reveals this like misconception that we've developed in the West, because we rely so much on the scientific method, which I'm a big fan of, by the way. But it's just that we took it too far, to the extent that we think that only things that can be proven and spoken about in third person, they're the only things that we can surely know about. There's nothing we can know about by ourselves. That's not true at all. And one of these things, there's a really good allegory that I'm sure I talked about before also in Buddhism, which is that allegory, the example with the snake and the rope, where you see a snake in the room, you freak out, and you have all the emotional responses you would have accompany like an actual freak out of like a dangerous animal in your house. And then you're like, wait, but it's not moving. Weird. Okay, so then you kind of look at it a little more, and then you realize, wait, that's not a snake, that's a rope. And you're like, okay, so then you calm down. Like, your physical state responds to what you're convinced of, right? So in that sense, it's equated to the fact that whatever your mind really believes, that's what your body does. But then you try to come closer, and all of a sudden, the way the shadow hits it again, it looks like it moves, and you're like, oh shit, no, it is a snake. And then you freak out again, right? So then you keep doing this, but there's a point where you got close enough. Let's say you turned on the lights, whatever you did, there's enough information that you can receive from it where you got close enough, there's enough light on it, maybe you even picked it up and felt it, like you held it in your hand. Whatever you got to do, there's always a line of no return. There's always a line from which you got enough information about it from which it's conclusive. So if it was a rope, there's enough information that you can get, and from that point on, you're like, no matter how the light is going to hit it, no matter, for a fact it's a rope. It is, right? And in that context, it doesn't make any sense to say, but maybe it was a snake when you thought it was a snake. No, it wasn't. It was always a rope. So it's in that context, this idea of like it's all mind made, it's whatever you want it to be, actually makes no sense. It's actually not true. But on the other hand, it also means that there are experiences you can have about the truth of whatever state of affairs of existence itself that will be conclusive. And it's used to illustrate this idea that there is an experience you can have about the self that is equivalent to the snake, that there is no snake, there is no self, and it's going to be as conclusive. There's nothing there in the middle. And in that sense, there's a degree of conclusiveness and realness that we can sense, because it essentially is, it's almost like we have a sense of truth. And you can define it as the collection of all the possible elements of information you would need to determine what it is, which sounds a little tautological, but it is how you experience things. And if you want to say, well, usually a sense senses one spectrum of whatever, it's either light or sound. It doesn't have to be that way. I think that the mind is also a sense, right? So it's like it senses information in a particular way, and in that way, you can think of experiencing truth as part of this sensorial experience you can have about the world. So, and again, I define truth not loosely, but in a very concrete way, which is it is the state of affairs. So when you're saying something true, the degree to which what you're saying is true is the exact degree to which it tracks what is happening in the world, or what is the truth about the function of whatever it is you're describing. And I think that's a useful parameter to use, because I think that the whole idea of postmodernism and any adjacent thought patterns around it, they're essentially, they're almost like I really see them as like a mind virus. It's almost like the brain is trying to shoot itself in the foot. It's trying to break down the one function that it's actually pretty good at doing. I don't know why it arose evolutionarily, but I really think it's a form of a mind virus. It doesn't make any sense to say that there is no truth. Of course there's the truth. It's whatever in fact is going on. Saying that you might not never, we talked about this yesterday, saying that you might never know the truth, that's a separate claim, and it's probably true. But that's different than saying there is no truth. I think we can agree that there are, a tennis court, no matter how infinite and how unfathomable, but it's okay to admit that it's there because it cannot possibly be anything else. Even if you are just this one unitary mind that experiences itself in all the possible ways, dimensions, directions, all of that, okay, then that's the truth. That is what is meant by the word truth. Is it premonition or made up? Which specific thing? Or are you responding to something else? Hold on, let me see. It's like the analogy of us being electric light, being in all the light spectrums are but what if you dream predictively? Yeah, so in any moment, that the predictive part, right, Kyle, that would be lucid dreaming. That's exactly what it is. You have agency, and you can only gain agency in a dream when you gain self-awareness. So they go hand in hand.
Kyle's also bringing up the prophetic dreams, like dreaming of things before they actually happen in your waking life.
Mhm.
That's what he's referring to.
Oh, I see.
I can't remember a time I've had something really concrete that I can think of when it comes to. I mean, I have lucid dreams almost every night, but not many of them are prophetic. It's always contained within that dream. Nothing. I'm not really shown things that are going to happen in the next day, week, or month, or anything like that.
I see. Interesting. So I actually want to comment on this, but before I want to get your take on this. So Cool Guy 42 is saying, so first of all, how are you, President Zaddy? Good to see you. Cool Guy 42 is saying, post molecule, I have been having contact, quote unquote, from the space where I get my memory from the molecule experience. I'm assuming you mean when you're asleep. Is that what you mean? And then he says, I have woken up to the entities above me, looking down at me, telling me to lay still, etc. And then he told me you have aphantasia, though, probably to the extent of like the realness of it, which is probably true. People ask me, how do I know that these things are real? And I always say, well, I because I actually are almost basically can't imagine anything visually. If it appears visually, I know it has to be there to some degree. Yes,
Yeah,
but something.
the analogy of that, it's like, when you wake up from a dream at night or in the morning, and that moment you're like, okay, that was the craziest dream ever, but this is real. This is what's actually real. Like when you're in that space, it's the same sensation of like, okay, my waking life, that was some kind of reality, but this is the more real.
This is the more real. Yeah, you're getting closer to the real. But the question to you, and I just know Cool Guy 42 again. I know him like personally, so he does have this like almost a negative experience with these entities. That kind of like they almost tell him like, we control you, like, well, stay down, like that kind of like a very negative thing. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
On the live the other night, the only time in 15 years, the only negative experience I had, I went into the space while I had been drinking alcohol earlier that night. I think I put in the chat that I was immediately confronted by this huge entity that grabbed me, threw me so hard that like I felt my essence like hit my body, and I was like almost slammed up against the wall. And the message I got was, how dare you disrespect this space? Don't ever come back in that state of mind again. So, but it was never like post that, like in just regular waking life, I haven't seen anything floating above my bed, but that's the only like negative experience I've ever had on it. And ever since then, I even knew that night going in, I'm like, oh, I'm a little drunk. I might not need to do that, because I had always respected it up to that point. And the one time I did it while I was wasted, I was like, yeah, immediately got shown that that's not the way you need to treat this experience.
So maybe it has something to do with the Adderall use, Cool Guy 42. It's possible.
Well, and then, he's saying like floating above them, saying we control you and all that. Bringing up what you said earlier when you said that there's entities that, referring to the code that you've discovered, there's some of them that are saying that no, this shouldn't be shared. No, definitely don't tell people about this. So it's like there's there's the
Yeah,
ebb and flow of the entity. It's not just like everything's rainbows on the other side.
Yeah, and that's
factions over there.
exactly, and that's what I told them. Like, they don't. First of all, they don't all agree. Second of all, they're not all beings of light. But he says that it feels like for him, like whomever is doing that to him is the ultimate whatever. I'm saying that's not likely. There's no, like, it's something that is trying to convince. Yeah, very powerful and trying to convince you that it is all the whole thing, but not very likely. And he's, by the way, he's saying, tell him thanks for answering. Haha. Yeah, I've read many trip reports that they often get pissed at that. So yeah, that I know it is very common. Oh wait, so you're saying that also for you waking, not? Are you saying right after sleep, or are you saying like straight up you're walking down the street and it can happen to you? Is that what you're saying? Agreed entities can communicate something to you by seemingly just delivering it. We have no real frame of reference to the kind of thing, but it's not that kind of thing, but it's not questioned or shaky in there. Oh, the realism of it, I see. The entity from Molecule Land was in my head with my body disabled. Yeah, so it literally sounds like this kind of similar entity to what people describe in Night Terrors. Very similar kind of like behavior.
Had that before. The night hag syndrome. The thing you wake up with sleep paralysis. I've experienced that 3 times in my life, and those were probably some of the scariest moments of my life. Is having sleep paralysis. That's probably one of the most terrible things somebody can go through.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I've had like a few times I woke up paralyzed, but it never happened to me that it was like the accompanied by the thing, and it sounds just terrible, like truly.
Oh yeah, it's the most negative. It's almost like being faced with like the most evil, just intent you've ever experienced in your life. That like this thing just wants to suffocate and destroy you, not only in the physical but in the spiritual as well. It's like I said, it's happened 3 times to me, and I mean that's something that goes back to like ancient. They used to, like I said, the term used to be called old hag syndrome.
Yeah, because it looks like a witch or something, right?
Right, a witch. They would see like the most evil, like witch face, like over them, like feels like 1,000 pounds of pressure, like pushing down on your chest, and the only thing you can move is your eyes. And you're screaming at the top of your lungs, but nothing's coming out and nothing's moving.
Yeah, sounds awful. Or honestly, I bet you some people, like when the second Neuralink can recreate any experience, I bet you some people would pay money. Like some people that love horror films, some people would just pay for this shit. I'm convinced of that. Yeah,
it's wild. I just a friend of mine, big gamer, he just gifted me Cyberpunk, the game, and there's an element to that game that's called like brain dances, to where like in the game, they record. It's almost like the same device in the brain test thing I was telling you about, the Black Mirror, but people sell like experiences that they had. It's like, oh, I was on the beach with this like beautiful woman and we're like having drinks and stuff like that, and they record like 15 minutes of it. It's like, hey, I'll sell you this experience for like $500 to where you
wait, is that, what's the name of the game?
Cyberpunk.
There's a movie Strange Days. Yes, Strange Days. What a great film. I love that film. It was it's so like it brings me way back. I think it also connects to a lot of really interesting like a really interesting time in my life. And it was something about that. It was like, this like transitional stage feeling, like we're truly transitioning into something else. And that was it's a great flick. Strange Days, dude, you're on it. That's amazing. He's saying, okay, it wasn't sleep paralysis. It mimicked it. I've had sleep paralysis consistently for 20 plus years. I'm comfortable with it. It was the molecule entity. And said, please let me out. I said, please let me out. And my head flew off my pillow as if I was trying to break out of sleep paralysis like I normally do. It was definitely not sleep paralysis. Yes, Witcher cheat on your chest, etc. Wow, dude, that's fucking wild. I have a friend who also experiences it on a regular basis, and he actually can't sleep at all. So he hasn't like, well, at all. That's obviously a straight. Like he obviously is alive, so he sleeps somewhat, but he can't sleep more than 1 or 2 hours a night. It's insane. And actually, it's funny because he's one of the loveliest people, and he always like is so positive. He just transformed it into so because he can't sleep, he just got into space photography, like astrophotography, and he became so good at it that NASA published his picture. It's just like, which is amazing. Yeah, yeah. He took his name is Mac Murdoch. You can look him up on Instagram, Mac Murdoch, and
Yeah, when you got 22 hours a day to work on your craft, I mean,
yeah, man. He took a picture of the sun with the ISS passing in front of the sun right in the middle, and he took it like with shots. That's the picture that NASA published. It's crazy.
Awesome.
You should try 6 p.m. Yes, I rarely sleep, which is why I have SP so often. Wow, man, that's awesome about NASA though. So again, the guy we're talking about here, Cool Guy 42, is an awesome dude, and if I understand it correctly, you also have like full on like you can't function without the Adderall, right? Like straight up like ADHD on like a crazy level. I understand it correctly, right? Um, and I know because I definitely have ADHD. It's just that I with time I realized that even though it's just night and day how much functional it makes you versus not it, I also noticed that it leaves like a residue inside of me that takes me further and further away from what I feel myself to be. And it actually connects to this whole like awakening experience because like I said, what I started saying before, he's saying yes. I want to address this in one moment, but I want to say one thing here, which is that I guess I'm not putting my experience in the same category as awakening, but it's because it still feels very terrestrial. But I can say, well, obviously I'm experiencing like wild things like the console, which is like super realistic, but it's not the same as what people describe as like starting feeling on a regular basis like you're part of the one or we're all one. I do feel a big difference between when I'm the more I work on just trusting the moment, and I know it sounds loaded, but just not worrying about what will happen, the easier it is for me to connect with people. And I mean literally like I can feel like I really want the like even if I don't know the person, I want the best for that person, right? I can really feel it, and when I feel it, there's like this like big opening that you can't fake. It's just like this like, ooh, you know when you do again I don't want to say the names in the molecules, but like the one that causes you to love everything. Okay, so when you do that molecule, there's this like heart opening, right? You feel this open. You just like you can breathe differently, right? And that is opening. You
Oh
can
yeah,
just
that first deep breath you get, where yeah, you feel the love emojis just fill you up.
yeah. So that so the more I feel that, the more I realize, yeah, that definitely like the more I move on that space, it makes it so much easier to just not worry about anything because you basically know that you are doing everything you can to be the best version in this matrix. So you don't have to worry about anything because you did your best no matter what happens, right? So even if like the worst happens, you're like, okay, well, I had a good time and I'm, you know, like you really did everything you could. And yeah, of course, it's love, obviously. um I'm
That
just
reminds me of you're familiar with Aubrey Marcus, I'm sure. His platinum rule that he coined.
which
So,
one? Which one?
Aubrey Marcus.
Yeah.
So the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. He kind of added to that. He calls it the platinum rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, because they are you.
Mm. Yeah, I just feel like again, you know, I've been following. He's definitely like you can see that it's truly waking up, right? Because like the version of him like 20 years ago is like looks nothing like what he is now.
Oh yeah.
I do feel that there's, and I'm not saying it even to like an. Okay, let me think about this for a second. So there's a reaction in me to that culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's a shade there. Not, and I don't mean in the sense of shady. I mean just like there's a tone there. It's a flavor that I don't like. There's
I
a
know exactly
you know what I
what you
mean?
mean. I
There's
was
a,
having
not
that
not in
same
him. It's just
conversation the
this
past
whole
couple of days.
community. There's like this like a little bit like yeah like there's almost like a lack of recognition that not everybody are there, and then it's like a lack of compassion for the people who are not fully there. So it's almost like, hey, can you tone it down when you meet the people that you know what I mean? Like it's like
Right.
it's like there's a way to do this that doesn't also reek of narcissism. And I'm not saying he is. I really don't think so. I really think he's like a very honest representation of a waking up. But there is something in that community that kind of dabbles into this like it pulls from a very narcissistic kind of way of expressing yourself that I'm recognizing that I just can't get with that. I can't. It's just kind of like when people take things too far, it's almost like you show up to some kind of a place and then somebody is like, I call it too breathy. They're kind of like, welcome, and it's like, I'm obviously overreacting, but it's like, calm down. Like, it's okay. Like the fact that you are waking up, or the fact that it doesn't also mean that you have to wear the entire paraphernalia. It doesn't also mean, it's actually the opposite. You probably become more normal, right? You don't become more acted out as a particular type. You become less of a type. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's more along the lines that the mentality I've adopted with my awakening over my adult life.
Yeah. It's like it just makes it actually harder to trust because it feels like a dissonance. So that's the only thing I would say and I guess what you just said invoked that reaction for me, because it sounds to me like that is an unnecessary adage to it. Because when you're saying because we're all one, like I said before in the chat, I don't see anything more like I don't see you being closer to the profundity of it by saying we should treat each other well because we're one, because that's actually it's less impressive, right? So actually, like meeting people where they are, in other words, communion, like true moment of like connection, like where you truly connect with someone else, is much more powerful to me than when you feel actually separate but you connect, versus saying we're all one, because just the fact that it's all you does not automatically mean you should be good to it. I mean, self-hate is a real thing, right? Just because it's you doesn't mean you won't hurt yourself. It doesn't automatically follow from that. And also the fact that and the other way of that is true too. Like if you're just good to yourself just because it's all you, that's actually selfish. It's like, it's not actually like more, it doesn't take more work, or it doesn't take more of a trying to engage. It takes less of that. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but just that's where it sits in my head.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's definitely more noble.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah, and by the way, whatever the truth is like, if it is true that we're all one, which at this point I'm pretty like, I don't have any reason to doubt that, because again, it was expressed to me through so many points of reference of people that I know that I can trust absolutely what they're saying. But it just seems to me like, as an idea, if the reason for you to suggest that we should be kinder to each other because we're all one, it's the wrong reason to do it. Like, it should not be the reason, right? It should just no matter what your level of awareness is, you should be kind to people because it automatically fulfills you. Like there's a fulfillment there.
Yeah, because the love that you withhold is the pain that you carry.
Dude, you're like, again, so we have Patricia and we have you. Is it you guys? I don't know what the male version of the Hawk Tour girl is, but you guys have great one-liners.
Yeah, I live by, like, my mind works in analogies and like.
No, I mean it. I don't mean it in the, like, I truly mean it's incredible. I mean it in the best possible way. It's amazing. Thank you. Cool guy 42 said the golden rule did not need an upgrade. But he took it upon himself. No, I really, honestly, I also know someone who's like knows him very well. He seems to be an incredible guy. And
Well, I think he came up with that after reading The Egg, probably.
got
That's
it.
probably
Yeah. No. I do. I actually don't hold any like like negative thoughts or connotations about him. But I do feel a little weirded out by the level of intensity of these kind of communities. I don't know. Maybe it's just my ego. Do unto others as they would do unto you, because they are you, has been around a long time. So he didn't make it up, essentially. What's up? Oh, he's waking up. He's getting crazy. I won't treat you either because of that. What? You being a different person is enough reason for him to treat you better. Yeah. I know. If I know that me and Dan are the same one person, I don't matter. I let myself go, but I'd check in on Dan. Oh, agreed. That's actually true. That's probably what I would do too. It's like, okay, well, I don't matter. Agreed. It's more like, wait, did you agree with yourself just now? Cool guy 42. Agreed. It's more like a plastic rule or the copper rule downgrade. My understanding at the moment is that we are both one. Wait, we are both one and both one and separate at the same time, and both those things are important. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Dan
that's
has
a good statement.
Dan has eating fortune cookies nonstop, reading them out loud. That's a channel. Fortune Dan. If I ever meet Aubrey, I'm going to treat him like a garbage. Like garbage. No, he's just like fucking. I was agreeing with you. You were saying the same thing that I. Yeah, no, I know. Essentially, too big of a delay though.
You should
He's
go to
he's
Austin and
hinting
check
that I'm
out
not
some
paying
of
attention to the YouTube comments. Like, dude, you're like a Jewish grandma. I was like, no, I'm okay. It's okay. I'm gonna be over here. I'm not. It's all good. My fortune cookie joke was funny. It was right after his quote. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's my fault that I'm not reading those comments early enough. And he's probably right. We are royal and majestic. I I really like you, Estrella. Truly honorary honorings, I think. Yeah. One's presence. Humility. You may he sense. Amazing. Okay. Yeah, so the reason that I was saying all of that is that when I was doing Adderall, I do feel that that ability to connect was definitely suffering. I even though I wanted to connect more, I couldn't. Like I felt like almost closed here. So it became clear to me that it's almost like you pick you either because you care about the functions, but you don't care so much what happens to the people around you. You just want to fulfill the function.
Oh yeah, my experience with Adderall did the same exact thing to me.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean by that, Estrella? Of course you do. Of course I do. What? Also, does anybody know what's up with the numbers in the back of the fortune cookies? Is that supposed to be for like winning the lottery or something?
I've never won with them.
Yeah. I mean, no, but like, what is it supposed to be? I love and like you too. Oh, well, I appreciate it. Wait, why is it not? I just keep sending invites. Okay. David Demuto, what's up, dude? It's also like apparently there's a lot more engagement on these hours. Maybe It's just like streaming at this hour every day might be. Oh, today's a Saturday, right?
Night too, right?
Today's a Saturday too. That's why. No, today's a Friday.
Is it Friday?
It's a Saturday. It's a Friday. What is it today? Oh no, today's a Saturday, dude. I'm like living on another planet. I think that's why Saturday has bigger engagement. No, it's I know. Like I lost myself Sunday here in New Zealand. Nice. Awesome. How was basketball, by the way, Azamun? I'm a night owl. Yeah, I used to be a night owl. I just it's so difficult to be a night owl when the rest of the world is not functioning on your time. So I guess it depends on your profession, right? The sun was
when you met Gallimore. Did you meet him in Tokyo or where did you meet him at?
right outside of Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah. It was it was an interesting experience for sure. He's he's a very private person, and I respect that. And yeah, and I think it's again, I don't drink, or at least not on a regular basis for sure.
Same.
And yeah, so he took me out to like drinking, and it's the hardest thing ever to try and express my ideas, sound intelligible, sound. And the whole time he was just like, dude, just like the whole time he was trying to make me, I guess, just like calm, like bring it to like a level where we don't have to talk about like others. Like I was like, I don't know. Listen, you're Andrew Gallimore. Like I'm trying to tell you all the things that like So it was very difficult to try and navigate this. Um, we saw, but we saw him in Pasadena the other. Oh yeah, the sun was setting. Oh, it's beautiful. And by the way, this is actually really funny. Only the really close people to me know about this. So now everybody in the chat will know about this, but this nobody else knows about this. Maybe 2 or 3 people know about this. There's a scoop here. So after we sat, I got so wasted. So I haven't drank in years. Now I can drink a lot of sake. I discovered that I'm very sensitive to regular alcohol. Now I'm Russian, so I used to drink like crazy. Like I used to literally, I could finish like a whole bottle of vodka, no problem, when I was 26. And like I would be coherent talking to you, and I could function the next day. And then over the years, obviously, I discovered that it actually does a lot of damage to your body, to your liver, to your face, to everything. And I stopped drinking, and it was gradual. First you kind of stop, and then you still have like an occasional social drink. And, oh, come on, man! Eventually, I learned how to say no. I just like no, I don't drink, and that's it. And so that was already after like I haven't drank in like I don't know 3 years or something. So imagine we go out, and he definitely drinks, okay, in the best possible way. He knows how to enjoy life. So we go out, and we just we had a bunch of sake, which was kind of embarrassing because it was like, oh, he's like, what are you gonna have? It's like sake. He's like, what do you mean? Sake means alcohol in Japan. So what kind? I was like, oh, okay. So there's like, you mean like he told me what is actually sake like in Japan and what it's called, which I don't remember. But anyways, we drink a bunch of it. I drank so much, and because I think I was also nervous. And then I drank so much, and then by the end of it, all I remember is that he walked me back to where the train was. I remember bits and pieces. Japan has an Instagram page where they show like all the people that get really really drunk in the train. It's a thing. Like you can there's like a whole Instagram page for that. And I'm pretty sure I ended up there. So like I haven't seen myself there, but I'm surprised if I'm not there somewhere. I was so wasted. I literally I fell asleep in the train. I remember vaguely like security guards kind of like escorting me out somewhere, and I'm like throwing up, and I woke up at like 2 a.m. on a pavement somewhere right outside the train station. The street is empty in Tokyo. There's nobody outside. The street is completely empty. My phone is next to me dead. And I'm realizing what's going on. I'm like, dude, okay. And then I kind of like get up and I start walking. I don't know why, but I was like, I never like nervousness never came into the picture. So I just kind of walked. I'm just gonna keep walking. I have no phone. I have no idea where I am. No map. No idea how to get back to the Airbnb. No idea anything. And that we were traveling the world. My now fiance already left because she had to go to Hawaii before us, and she had a ticket before me, and I just stayed for another week. So I'm alone. I have no phone. I have like nothing, right? So I'm just walking around, and then I see the store, and I probably looked so crazy. I walk into the store, and I asked if he has a charger. So he's like, yeah. So I bought a charger, and it's like, can I charge it here? He's like, no, no, no. Like you gotta go. You gotta go. It's like, okay, I probably look insane. So I go outside. I'm looking for like a thing to connect my phone, right? And then there's these two guys outside, and it's almost like it's like a 7-Eleven. I don't think it was a 7-Eleven, which by the way, they took over the world. I don't know if you know, 7-Eleven are everywhere in Thailand and in Japan. You probably know this, but I had no idea. It's everywhere. So I step outside. So it's kind of sort of like a 7-Eleven, and there's these two British guys standing outside getting wasted. They're just drunk. And they were probably in their 50s or something. They're just two like British pals, and they're just like, cracking jokes like, hey, how you doing? And then we started like talking. It's like, I saw you there like an hour ago on the pavement, and I thought I should probably grab his phone, but then I didn't. He's like, so you're welcome. I'm like, well, probably wouldn't end up that well for you. He's like, well, really? I think I would just grab it. I'm like, I don't think so. So he's like, anyway, we went through that whole thing. And then we kind of started chatting. And then he's like, well, what are you doing here? I'm like, okay, do I tell this guy that I'm a guy who discovered that we live in a simulation and I'm here to meet one of the most famous scientists in the world that studies the molecule? Imagine at 2 a.m. you meet this guy that like coming out of a store like wasted, just bought like you just saw him like on the floor with his face planted into the asphalt, and it is just his phone is dead, and now you see him coming out, stumbling outside of the store buying a charger, and he's gonna tell you that he discovered we live in a simulation and he's here to live some research.
Wow.
So I did. I'm like, I told them exactly all of that, and they just kind of both looked at me. It was perfect. I'm like, what other opportunity is gonna be to fuck with someone that like, what are the chances that what I'm saying is true? Yet it is. And I know that later down the line, if they ever see me somewhere, I don't know, on Joe Rogan or whatever, they're gonna probably remember. It's like, holy shit, that guy was for real.
We thought he was just wasted.
It was amazing. Let me see. Hold on. So yeah, nobody knows about this aside from you guys and like 3 other people. So you're welcome. While we were out there, I thought it was a really cool story. The one day will be fun to tell, and it is. Out there, really nice. We saw him in. Okay, I saw that. He's. This is why the simulators are split on you being the prophet. Or maybe that's the reason that maybe I am. Not that I want to be, but that is really
Were you
fun.
saying that was the last time you drank or got that wasted?
Oh, I don't drink in general. So it was the
Yeah.
before then I didn't drink in like 3 years, and since then I didn't drink. Like I don't drink.
Right.
Like it's not
Right.
it's not a thing. I don't see the point of it at this point because I enjoy myself a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. His goons. It's really fun. Trust me, he will connect with the world's most foremost authority on the molecule. See, he's sitting down ordering dinner with him now. 3 hours later, just like planted face first in the thing. I mean, listen, like Elon Musk says, are you not entertained? What else is this for, right? Like if it's just like this boring story, come on. This is, let's see. Yeah, you don't drink in it. Yep, that is a good. There's a good reason why alcohol is not a good.
Have you titled your documentary yet?
I think the discovery is the title.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really good. Oh yeah, so we have a bunch of SpongeBob. What? Wait, why SpongeBob? I don't watch it enough to know what's the reference.
You said 3 hours later.
Oh, that's from there. Got it. Okay. CCTV footage of you arguing with the British dudes. Oh man, we should get our hands on that. Maybe I can ask the simulators if they can find it. So that's funny. What was it? What the fuck was I saying? Damn. All right, escaped me. Whatever. Drives me crazy now. What do I want to say? Never mind. Anyways, it was definitely very enlightening, and I should probably email him today and just like, hey, it's been a year, I still haven't delivered on my promise. It's gonna be very funny. And I know it actually because he wrote a new book, and I'm actually very excited to. He didn't finish it. Saki Gallimore, Drunk Japan, Rogan, CCTV, Subway. Wait, where are you searching for these things? The dark web. Sake keyword Sake Gallimore, Drunk Japan, Rogan, CCTV. Why would Gallimore be in it? He's not involved in the me being drunk part, stumbling across Tokyo. Yeah, but it was just like it was so perfect because it was like just from their perspective, right? This insane person. Oh my god, dude, it drives me crazy now. What did I want to say? Oh, okay. We'll remember. Whatever. We'll move on to the next subject. It will come to me. What else do we have to cover? Well, I don't know. Do we feel like we're ascending? Maybe we already did. Maybe this whole chat we basically moved to like a new Earth or something without realizing. We just step outside and it's all just birds singing and cows in a pasture outside, even if you live in the city. Trying to trigger my memory. Oh, I see. Absolutely. Oh, it drives me insane. It drives me crazy. Let's see. Sake Galmore, Drunk Japan, Rogan, CCTV, Subway. Oh, I don't know. Anyways,
When you're in, do you speak any Japanese, or were you
No.
using translators, or
For what?
everyone speaks English over there?
No, but I mean, for in Tokyo, for what you need, like you can gesture to what you need, and if there were like things that I needed to say that are more complex, I mean, just Google Translate. It works pretty well all over the world. I will say that Japan is probably one of the first places. No, actually, Korea was definitely one, because Korea, they're also not interested in helping you. So basically, we were in Seoul, like the big city, and they don't care. Like, if you don't speak the language, good luck. Like on purpose. Even in the hotel, and we were in a nice hotel, they don't care. Like literally, they barely speak the English, and they don't want to. They don't care. It kind of feels like you're not welcome, honestly. And it's the first time we felt a little lost, because in every country you go, there's always some connection to English, and the only place where we were, which was like in Montenegro, which is they speak their own language there, but it's close enough to Russian, and I speak Russian, so that we got by that way. That was the first time when we were like, dude, we literally we're just, like, if you don't know how to say, you don't know how to say, and then you have to use like Google Translate.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I'm going to London next month for a couple of weeks, and then after that, I was trying
They
to
speak
decide
English.
if I wanted to go to either Seoul or Tokyo. So it sounds like Tokyo.
Tokyo, man. I mean, that's my experience.
I don't speak Korean, yeah.
Some people rave about Korea and they love it. I did not have a good experience. Not terrible. It's just it felt unwelcoming. And Tokyo definitely blew my mind. There's no question that Tokyo is the address if I would have to recommend. And I actually have a neighbor he's Korean, and he's a like he lived here his entire life. He's a professor, blah blah blah. But he told me that that's just the thing about Korea. I told him this, and they said, yeah. Like he said, if I go to Korea right now, they're gonna look at me funny, because they know I'm not, like I'm from there, but I'm not from there, because I haven't lived there in so long. They will see by the way I dress, by my mannerisms. There's like this kind of like no, and they're so rule oriented that it's crazy. We went to a Starbucks, and I was talking to my fiance, and I as I was talking, I grabbed one of their juices. Just we're in line and we're right here, like we're about to pay, and we're just talking, so I just opened it up and took a sip, and then I put it I pull out my card, and I'm giving her the card, and she froze. She was literally frozen. She was like this, and then she was like, you open? And I'm like,
never seen somebody do that in her life,
dude. I'm like, here's the card, charge for it. She's like,
oh wow,
that's crazy. And also it's yeah, man, Tokyo. Also there's what's it called, where's the bamboo forest in what's the name of the city? Come on, cool guy 42, help me out here. You're really quick on these things. In I wanted to say Aikido. That's how racist I am. In Japan. Really?
Today as well, yeah. That's why I asked. Full internet connection, but it wouldn't let me go to like just super regular sites that I frequent for some reason.
What city is it? Okay, what city? Maybe it is what it is. Maybe what city is bamboo forest in Japan? Let's see. Kyoto. Couldn't remember. I knew it was something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so Kyoto is definitely highly recommended. Hey, buddy. And then Tokyo, just like there's so many different beautiful things there. It's kind of crazy. It really feels like like not a toy in like a like not real, but like it's so clean and so organized and so like everything is so thought through. That is like it's super impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, since I'm failing to recall what I wanted to say, and since we already ascended, I think this was fun but relatively uneventful, which I guess is a good thing. Oh, maybe something about the documentary I can recall. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, remembered. The documentary, we have a bunch of the trailers we're going to release for the crowdfunding stuff. We just had to, cross all the T's and dot all the I's for the legal purposes because of the subject matter. So we had to have a few conversations with the lawyer. Tomorrow we're actually shooting another scene, another interview, and another experiment. And well, I don't want to jinx it. We have some very fun people that agreed to be in the film, so I'm very excited about all that stuff, and we'll bring it to everybody's awareness very soon with a lot of fun trailers. And and hopefully very soon we're gonna have something to present, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Ascension while you're in this body is the point. Okay, well, that's how I feel.
Did you ever figure out what was going on with the Dropbox files on your website of the reactions people were having with the experiment?
Oh yeah, because it was I think it was Pepe's Dropbox. I'm gonna put it in my own Dropbox and put it on there. And to your question, Azamoon, the live stream is daily, every day. It's just that I kind of flip on the hours. Honestly, today I started very late. It was 9 p.m. Pacific time. Usually it starts anytime between 4 and 6. Recently, I've been starting around 6 every day, 6 Pacific time. But tomorrow, I don't know because we're shooting tomorrow. But obviously, we'll still have an episode for sure. But it might also be like very late. Love you too, brother. It might be at like 9 p.m. as well, Pacific time. Absolutely. All right, amazing. So, everybody, much love. If we ascended, I'm glad we all ascended together. If you're going to ascend soon, then I hope to see you on the other side. But in all seriousness, to the extent that I've had any, you have any trust in my rigor of thought, please take it from me, no matter what your participation or belief is, to the extent that you can, be the best version of yourself. Be kind, be loving, and don't be a dick. Might cost you. Love you guys. Have a good night. Yep. See you tomorrow. See you, everybody.